Ends with a scene of a dimly lit night sky under the bright full moon. In the White Demon Castle, the Lady Goddess of Darkness, Heloise, calls out the White Demon Saint, Chun-Bai, our protagonist. With a cold stare, Heloise said to a Breathless by that his failure in his previous mission had put her in a bad mood. So for his punishment, he had to be deleted out of existence. Maybe, if he ends up in hell, he will learn a thing or two about the consequences of failing a mighty being such as herself. Shocked at the unexpected and unforgiving turn of events, Bai, sweating profusely, begged for his life. He loudly asked Heloise to please consider his past accomplishments and give him another chance. Unfortunately, his plea fell on deaf ears as Heloise continued that lowly being such as him has no right to request another opportunity from her mighty self. And as for Bai's white magic castle, well, it will face the same fate as him, obliterated with the darkness. So with that, endless darkness descends on the white magic castle, devouring everything in sight, including him. Seeing this, Bai struggles pointlessly to survive. However, moments later, he was plunged in the pit of the endless darkness. As he was being consumed, he thought of how he had completed nearly 100 quests for Heloise, to the point that it was basically the entire sum up of his life, and due to his dedication, he was still a virgin loser. But just because of one failure, he was being wiped out. On top of that, Heloise never considered him as nothing other than a lowly human trash. In that case, fuck this shit. He refused to accept it. He would never submit to this bitch. As the darkness consumed 80% of his body, leaving his head to his chest with one arm, Bai laughed menacingly about his fucked up situation. So with his remaining strength, he gave Heloise the middle finger, calling her an evil dark bitch as his final act of defiance. However, Heloise, with her cold and nonchalant demeanor, casually stepped on Bai's remaining body like squashing a disgusting bug under her feet into the sea of endless darkness. So as his remaining body finally deteriorate, leaving his hourglass necklace, Bai suddenly woke up from his bed, shouting on top of his lungs, still cursing and giving the middle finger to Heloise. Sweating bullets, he regained his bearings and wondered why he was not dead. Turning his head from left to right and right to left, he noticed that he was in his dorm from his college days. How did I get here? Wasn't I killed by that bitch? Bai questioned himself in complete shock. He then wondered if it was a dream, but the decades of trial he went through felt so real. Steeling his resolve, he concluded that it wasn't a dream. It was in that moment that he noticed his necklace, the hourglass. It was the item he obtained 20 years after the arrival of the Universal Will, and when the trial began, it was the most unique item he had ever seen. The hourglass can't display any attributes and can't be destroyed, so he always kept it with him. He also remembered that the sand was at the bottom, it wouldn't flow even if turned upside down, but now it's at the top. So with that, Bai believed that the sand flowing back meant time had reversed, and as he checked the current time he was in. June 5, 2023, 10 days before the arrival of the Universal Will and the start of the trial. It is revealed that 10 days later, on the 15th of June, the Universal Will would officially arrive and the trial will begin. More than 90% of humanity will die, and the deceased humans will turn into various zombies and monsters. All conventional weapons will fail, and the world will witness its demise in just one night. However, along with the dangers of the Universal Will and the trial, came opportunities for those who survived. They awaken innate abilities, and many magical equipment and items from various copies were also descended onto Earth along with the Universal Will. These good things even attracted gods who control the rules of the universe, and these gods cannot directly intervene in the trial, so they attract humans under the guise of protection, attempting to gain benefits from it. In his previous life, he was not strong enough, and due to this, he paid a lot to just join under Heloise's command. Bai desperately completed every task Heloise assigned him, trying to enhance his status, but what he never expected was to be erased just for failing one mission. Moments later, Bai received series of notifications as he searched the news for any weird abnormality. He found what he was looking for, and the news made mention of a new type of rabies, something like zombies from the movies. Patients at Jiangcheng First Hospital are going crazy and biting people. Also, something unbelievable occurred at the hospital. Apparently a body in the middle of forensic dissection at the medical examiner's office woke up. Bai read everything and knew where to start his quest in getting stronger. This time, he plans on getting stronger enough that he wouldn't rely on anyone or any god. Scratch that. He wants to become strong enough to crush even the gods. To crush their narcissistic asses under his feet just like that bitch Heloise did to him. Also, he will make her pay for what she did to him, Bai vowed to himself. So with that, he made his way to the hospital, thinking that 10 years later after the trial began, someone claimed to have discovered the only way to upgrade innate abilities. The person said that 10 days before the trial began, a person's innate abilities actually became effective, and if one discovers and utilizes their innate abilities, they can upgrade them. Again, in his previous life, his innate ability was an E-rank virus resistance. According to that method, by thought of using it to upgrade his innate ability, he must use the virus to trigger and strengthen it in advance. Bai hides behind a wall as he listens to a doctor commenting on how such strange symptoms was truly unprecedented. The nurse replied, saying that she feels like the patient looks exactly like a zombie in the movies. When they left, Bai sneaked in and approached the patient, whose body was heavily restrained, and his mouth was restrained as well to avoid any noise. He stood directly beside the patient, silently confirming out loud that it was indeed a zombie. And as he plunged a syringe into the patient's arm for his blood, Bai commented that to utilize and train his virus resistance innate ability, he can only rely on this patient's blood. He drew some of his blood, commenting that it was enough to trigger his innate ability. A while later, he arrived at his dorm, noticing that his roommates were not present, indicating that they were going to stay up all night. He then took out the syringe with the zombie's blood, momentarily stared at it, thinking that if the theory was wrong, then he will die. Fuck it. He will take his chance. He plunged the syringe in his arm and injected the blood into his body. Before the time reset, Bai struggled for decades as a weakling, barely surviving until he finally made progress. So even if he awaked an E-rank innate ability again, this time knowing the future, he would still miss opportunities due to being too weak. So as the blood seeps into his body, bulging his veins and eyes, Bai experienced an unimaginable pain. He willed himself, commenting that to start over and still be weak was equivalent to him begging for death. If that's the case, he might as well just die now. Seconds later, his wish was granted as he collapses on the floor, losing consciousness as everything fades into complete darkness. In the darkness, Heloise stood in front of his struggling, crouching form. She called out to him, telling him to just give up his futile resistance and embrace the darkness. As a lowly human as himself, he should just be part of the darkness as that was his most fitting end. Seeing the hallucinated figure, Bai commented, "Oh please, not this bitch again. Seriously Heloise, even in my sea of consciousness you still want to torment me." Bai roared loudly with complete determination and hatred-filled expression. "Just you wait, you fucking bitch. Chun Bai will make you pay for everything." A while later, in his dormitory, Bai stood on his balcony, still in a zombie state. He heard the noise of his dorm's door opening, and as he turned around, his roommates stared at his appearance with an expression like their souls had left their bodies. They immediately took a defensive stance and asked him what was going on. Hearing his name snapped him back to his senses, and as they all stood there, momentarily silent and unmoving, Bai welcomed them back and told them he was going to the washroom to clean himself up. He dashes for the door, leaving them speechless. In the washroom, he stared in the mirror, ecstatic that the theory worked. The zombie virus didn't kill him, and his innate ability has upgraded successfully. He also wondered what level his innate ability will be after awakening. At that moment, the Universal Will appeared, congratulating Chun Bai on being selected as a pioneer, receiving the title of Pioneer and Awakening in advance. Bai heard the announcement in his head and immediately knew that it was the voice of the Universal Will. Also, he thought that if he had already awakened, then he can open his status window. He first opened the title interface with a joyful expression. As a pioneer, he was among those who had discovered, utilized, and trained their abilities before the trial began, therefore he can possess this title. All attributes increase by 5%, experience gain also increases by 10%. So with that, he can open his attribute panel in advance. A sly grin formed on his face as he thought that a percentage boost was the perfect title. Bai then went on to check his innate ability panel. In excitement, his hand dented the tile he was resting his hands on. His innate ability was the Virus Monarch, an SSS awakened ability. The Virus Monarch was the most powerful ability in the virus element. It can absorb, utilize, manipulate, transform, and even create viruses. But currently, he only had the ability to absorb viruses, and the range of absorption was very limited. Knowing that he needed a large amount of virus to enhance his ability, Bai immediately thought of a hospital since it was naturally the best place to obtain such item. A while later, Bai arrived back again at the Jiangqing First Hospital. His eyes immediately shot up, shocked, as several people rushed out of the hospital, screaming in horror. A fat guy shouts at Bai, telling him that there was zombies in the hospital, claiming it was the end of the world. Hearing this, he smiled, recalling that in his previous life, he heard people talk about the name of 3 strange incidents that happened in Jiangqing before the trial came. One of them was the sealed hospital. Turns out, Jiangqing First Hospital was the hospital in question that got sealed. The fat guy asked where Bai was going as he dashes forward, smirking brightly, saying that it looks like he came to the right place. He launched towards an incoming zombie, grabs his head and pin him to the ground. The virus Monarch's talent skill was virus absorption. As he placed his hand on the zombie's face, he absorbed the virus from the zombie's body and gained 1 virus point, used for strengthening his abilities. So, as the rest of the zombies outside rushed towards him, Bai excitedly told them that none of them will be able to escape. Meanwhile, in the hospital on the 4th floor's restroom, a few group of zombies were trapped with 2 people. The guy, Lu Feng, was sweating bullets, repeating to himself that it was over, and he didn't want to die. So as one of the zombies continuously hits on the stall he was hiding in, he turned to a pink short-haired girl, Suzin, who happens to be a nurse at the hospital. Crouching on the floor behind Lu Feng, Suzin asked what they should do now. Hearing this, Lu Feng was silent and started to shake uncontrollably, prompting Suzin to ask what was wrong with him. Lu Feng's expression turned malicious, and as he approached Suzin, he told her that he's been chasing her for so long, but she never agreed. Now that they were about to die, why don't they enjoy themselves before they do? Hearing this, Suzin shouts that Lu Feng was mad. How can he spout such nonsense? Hearing the noise, the zombie plunged his hand in the stall, reaching for them. A second later, the entire door was destroyed as Lu Feng frighteningly looked back, wondering how this situation could be happening. He reached and grabbed Suzin's hand, pulled her past himself, and pushed her towards the zombie, using her as a human meat shield. With Suzin and the zombie out of the way, Lu Feng rushed towards the window. A second later, the same zombie was hot on his heels in a flash. Lu Feng suddenly had a crazy idea. He thought of how it was merely the 4th floor, so there was the possibility of him surviving if he just makes the jump. However, before Lu Feng could take the plunge, the zombie launched for him from behind. Fortunately, the zombie missed, crushing through the window. Unfortunately, Lu Feng died from the sudden impact, hanging on the broken window. His eyes turned completely pale as fresh blood dripped from his nose, signifying his lifeless figure. Several minutes later, it is shown that several zombies were found dead in the lower floors, and as Bai reached the 4th floor, he came across Suzin still in the process of turning into a zombie. So after he dealt with the zombies in the restroom with her, he crouched down beside her and placed his hand on her forehead. Knowing that the military will soon arrive to seal off the hospital, he needed someone who knew the hospital's layout to lead the way. So with that thought, Bai activated his virus absorption and sucked out all the zombie virus inside her, canceling her transformation process. Suzin suddenly opened her eyes, sat up with a surprised realization of what happened to her, and turned to Bai, thanking him for saving her. Bai, however, was a little bit surprised that what he did actually worked. He grabbed her hand and asked her if she remembered what happened. Suzin replied that she does. With no time to waste, Bai then asked her that he needs her help with something in the hospital. However, Suzin, embarrassed with the state of her clothes, replied that she wants to change into something new first. Ignoring her insignificant request, Bai again grabbed her hand and told her that there was no time to waste. She just has to take him to the place where the hospital keeps their viruses. A while later, they were at the hospital's laboratory. Suzin then mentioned that this was where they kept their viruses, and all clinical samples from patients were tested here as well. Grabbing all the viruses he can find, Bai immediately started mixing them together, shocking Suzin to inquire what he planned to do with it. After mixing them, he used his virus absorption skill to siphon everything into his body as series of notification rang out. Bai gained several virus points, such as the initial acquisition of hepatitis of 10 virus points, influenza of 7 virus points, herpes of 9 virus points, and finally an HIV of 10 virus points. With all the viruses absorbed, next was strengthening of the zombie virus with the viruses he just acquired. Bai knew that there were several methods of enhancing his strength. They were the ancestor virus, the dark light virus, the decay virus, the coxy virus, and lastly the T virus. But it seems that the most beneficial method of enhancing his strength was the dark light virus. You see, zombies virus evolves into the dark light virus, and all attributes increase by 10. Self-healing ability also increases by 200%. Bai successfully obtained the core ability of the dark light virus to evolve and devour. He knew that the dark light virus was a virus primarily focused on devouring and evolving. Suddenly, Suzin shouted, telling Bai that a zombie was approaching from the door. Seeing this, Bai told her to stay where she was. Then, in a flash, he grabbed the zombie's neck in the other side of the room. He was amazed with his speed and strength, considering the zombie he's holding weighs about 150 pounds, and he doesn't feel any difficulty at all. He smirks, saying that it was a good opportunity to test his new ability. Suddenly, dark purple vines came out of his hand, and as the zombie screams needlessly, the vines completely covered the zombie, devouring it without a trace. The skill was called the Evolution Devourer. The dark purple vines retracted back into his hand, and as he stretched out his muscles, he was glad that the absorption speed was fast as well, making him recover some of his stamina. Looking totally confused and surprised, Susan wondered what just happened. Making Bai asked her what was wrong, and why that sudden expression on her face. Susan sighed heavily, and replied that Bai saved her, so she trusts that he won't harm her, and she can keep his secret. So with that, Bai officially introduced himself as Chung Bai, and she, in turn, introduced herself as Susan. As the introduction was out of the way, they heard a loud groan and shootings from outside the lab. Bai told Susan that the military and the police were here, and they must have sealed off the hospital in order to clear out the zombies, so they need to leave immediately. As they made a run for it, Bai asked Susan to lead him to the rooftop. They will leave from there. Struggling to keep up, Susan wondered out loud why they couldn't just leave through the main entrance since they hadn't encountered any zombie yet. Bai replied that he didn't have time to be isolated and questioned. Unbeknownst to them, a large evolved zombie was on the ceiling, watching them approaching. When they saw it, Bai quickly pushed Susan to safety and faced the evolved zombie. Susan was frightened, seeing the size of the evolved zombie. She started stuttering, trying to ask what it was. However, Bai, knowing what she was getting at, replied her that it was a mutant. As Bai faced off the mutant, a noticeable amount of fresh blood oozes onto the floor, indicating that he was injured. And as he grabbed his injured arm, the large claw marks began to heal, making him smirk with excitement. He found it interesting to have encounter a mutant this early, and wondered what kind of evolution the dark light virus will produce after absorbing the mutant. As Bai continued to stare at the mutant with a smirk, it launched towards him. In a flash, it was upon him with its arms raised, intending to rip him to pieces. Fortunately, Bai quickly noticed. He exerted a considerable amount of effort in his legs, and leaped upwards, dodging the mutant's strike as it broke the floor, denting it greatly. In the air, Bai stepped on the mutant's head, using it as a stepping stone to leap over it. However, with its fast reflexes, the mutant turned its body just enough to use its claws to slash the air, aiming for Bai. Fortunately, Bai angled himself in mid-air, again, dodging the mutant's lethal attack. After putting a significant distance between them, Bai grabbed a nearby zombie and absorbed the virus from its body. As he did, he commented on how the overall quality on the mutant were on par with his. The mutant dashed for him again, and Bai, with his stamina recovered to a degree, his speed and strength also enhanced, he made a fist with his hand, covered with his dark purple vines, and hit the mutant directly on the chest. As the force of the hit threw the mutant into a wall, Bai acknowledged the toughness of the mutant's skin. Again, he then immediately put a distance between himself and the mutant as the mutant fell on the ground. When it got up, its face darkens as it roared loudly with intense killing intent. It was in that moment that Bai's arm completely healed. He also noticed that his hit didn't make any effective damage, implying that it was going to take a lot of time to deal with this mutant. In that moment, Susan used her elbow to break the glass of a nearby fire hose cabinet and took out an axe. She quickly called out to Bai and threw the axe towards him. However, before the axe could reach him, the mutant made a mad dash forward for his neck. Bai, however, with his amazing reflexes, leaped backwards as the mutant claws narrowly missed him. In the air, he caught the axe, thanking Susan. Then, he landed on the mutant's shoulder, and the same as earlier, he used the mutant's shoulder as a stepping stone. But as he made another leap, he swung the axe as the mutant did the same with its claws. Fortunately, its claws merely nicked his stomach, marking his shirt. On the other hand, the axe sliced the mutant across the chest as it roared in pain. So with that, Bai and the mutant engage in a fierce battle as they fought to a draw, both parties momentarily gaining the upper hand. However, neither can seem to land a fatal blow. As the fight drags on, Bai intended to end it soon, so he threw the axe at the mutant. However, when the axe struck the mutant, it feigned indifference and again launched for him, intending to close the gap Bai keeps creating. As the axe bounced back after hitting the mutant, it became apparent that its stamina was wearing out, making it crouch down. Realizing this, Bai approached it, commenting on how he didn't expect the mutant to have held out for as long as it did. He leisurely rested his foot on the mutant's head, and teasingly told it that it should have gone for his head rather than his hand when it had the chance. However, he, on the other hand, would do no such thing. So with that, he raised the axe, intending to relieve the mutant of his head. Unfortunately, the mutant went berserk, veins bulging out on its head as it crashes by into the wall with a massive force. The sudden impact made him spurt out a mouth full of fresh blood. This scene shocked Susan greatly. She immediately calls out to Bai, asking if he was okay. Bai let go of the axe, thinking that there was no other way except devouring. The mutant, with his claws, reached into Bai's stomach, intending to rip him apart. Seeing this, Bai grinned excitedly, asking the mutant if it felt the same. Thus, the prospect of wanting to tear him apart. Hearing this, the mutant roared loudly. A second later, it was shocked to see several dark purple vines burst out of Bai's stomach and started covering every inch of its body. Bai activated his evolution Devour as the dark purple vines completely engulfed the mutant. Seeing this, Bai teased the mutant of being frightened now that it was caught in his web. He continued that it was too late for the mutant to do anything about it other than being his sustenance. Suzin watched the entire scene, and at that moment, she was confused and decided to give up on trying to make sense of what she just saw. Meanwhile, the system chimed in, notifying Bai that the devouring of a second-stage clawed zombie was complete, and his black light virus transformation was in processing. After the processing was complete, he obtained a clawed zombie ability called the Bone Claws. Witnessing this, Bai was ecstatic. He thought devouring and then evolution, it looks like choosing the black light virus was indeed correct. At that moment, multiple footsteps headed their way. Several military men, armed to the teeth, told Bai and Suzin to raise their hands. Simultaneously, they wondered if they were zombies. Bai fell silent for a moment, then turned to Suzin, indicating that he intended for them to make a run for it. As the military men told them that they had to the count of 3 to raise their hands or else they will shoot, Bai lifted Suzin into his arms, and as the countdown reached 0, they started shooting. Several bullets were fired at them as Bai made a run for it. Suzin directed him on the path he should take that leads to the rooftop. However, the continuous rapid firing made her worry, questioning Bai if he was okay. Bai replied, telling her to refrain from speaking and not move in his arms. The scene shifts to the rooftop. The quiet and clean scenery suddenly disappeared as Bai forcefully kicked open the door. He then asked where Suzin's home was, to which she replied that it was in Romfing neighborhood, North 4th Road, Nanbai Street. Hearing this, Bai gave a bright smile and told her to hold on. Then, he made a mad dash on the rooftop and suddenly jumped, scaring the living daylight out of Suzin, who hugged Bai tightly by the neck. They arrived at the desired location 20 minutes later, and as Suzin opened the door to her apartment, she directed Bai to where the bathroom was, offering to help him clean and dress his wounds. Bai replied that he was almost healed since the bullets didn't stay inside his body. Hearing this, Suzin felt a little skeptical. This made Bai decide to show her, so he undressed, removing his shirts. Seeing this, Suzin pointed to the wound on Bai's hand, telling him that it wasn't fully healed, then his stomach, and finally, his chest. However, looking at how ripped Bai was, Suzin couldn't help but blush furiously. Reading the room, Bai teasingly said that if he eats her, he would surely make a full recovery. He then asked her what she thought. Will she want to sacrifice herself? Hearing this, Suzin answered, saying that if Bai was going to eat her, he would have already done so, since he had numerous opportunities. In that moment, Bai closed that distance between them, and seductively replied that she was wrong. He didn't eat her earlier because the environment wasn't quite suitable. And also, she misunderstood what type of eating he was referring to. So with that, he ripped out the remaining clothes on Suzin's body, saying that the environment was good and more suitable now. He then asked again about what she thought about helping him recover. Will she willingly sacrifice herself? Hearing all this, Suzin's face was all kinds of shades of red. She began stuttering, unable to form a sentence. So Bai took the plunge and kissed her on the mouth. Seconds later, they were in the bathroom, ensuring that his eating session was thoroughly enjoyed without any disturbances. Meanwhile, at the entrance of the bathroom, Bai's phone buzzed excessively. On his phone, series of messages rang out. It was his friend, Zhao Mu, who mentioned that their class beauty, Songgu, was looking for him. Immediately after, Songgu also messaged him, asking if Bai went to Jiangqing First Hospital like his friend told her, and if he was dead. If he wasn't, he should answer her immediately. The very next day, Bai was leisurely walking down on the street, a bag in hand, phone in the other, doing research on the 3 strange incidents that actually happened in Jiangqing before the trial. He found out that including the SEAL Hospital, the other 2 were the suburban bombing and the monster slaughterhouse. Bai didn't know much about these 3 strange incidents. However, given the little information he could find about them before the trial's arrival was an absolute headache. And from the looks of it, nobody seemed to care much about it either. To everyone, it was just something unimportant that was occasionally mentioned in casual conversations. Just then, Suzin called. Bai answered, telling her that he was on his way with their breakfast, but she quickly cut him off. Suzin said that 2 men are at her apartment looking for him, and that's due to the fact that someone named Song Ziqiong wants to see him urgently. She continued that the men looking for him don't look like good people. Also, since they bluntly made mention of Song Ziqiang wanting to see him, then it's highly probable that it's a scam. The reason being that Song Ziqiang is basically the queen of Jiangcheng and doesn't openly invite anyone. Su Xin asked what she should do. Hearing this, Bai replied that they weren't lying, however, she should tell them to wait outside for him. It was at this moment that Bai checked his messages and found out that Song Gu had been trying to reach him non-stop. Song Gu is the daughter of Song Ziqiang. Also, she was a classmate of his and they had some entanglement together in the past. After reading through the messages, Bai found it interesting that Song Gu went to see her mother. And since she could find her way to Su Xin's place meant that she must know something. Bai realized this and decided that it seemed necessary that he meets with Song Ziqiang. A while later, at the suburban freezer warehouse, a car makes a sharp turn before coming to an expected stop. Bai got out of the car, and one of the men told him that Song Ziqiang was waiting for him inside. From rags to riches, Song Ziqiang became the richest person in Jiangcheng by excelling in both legitimate and illegitimate endeavors. Also, after the trial's arrival, she was awakened as an A-level talent, swiftly building her power, and eventually, she unified the whole Jiangcheng amidst the three-way competition, truly becoming someone deserving of the title Jiangcheng's queen. In his past life, Bai could only look up to someone like that. However, things are different now. Bai thought that if she could recruit Song Ziqiang to his side, then there will be much more he can do during the current interval before the trial begins. As they entered the warehouse's corridor, Bai was officially introduced to Song Ziqiang. Song Ziqiang apologizes for bringing him here on such short notice, but she couldn't have it any other way at the moment. Hearing this, Bai asked if there was something she wanted to talk to him about. Song Ziqiang replied that she called Bai here because Xiao Go, her daughter, came home in panic, requesting that she save Bai since he went out of contact at Jiangcheng First Hospital. So the reason for this gathering was to see what kind of man could make her daughter so nervous. She continued that she was curious about what's so charming about Bai to capture her daughter's attention. Hearing this, Bai wasn't buying her bullshit. He bluntly stated that Song Ziqiang should stop beating about the bush and just mention what's the real purpose for her meeting. Song Ziqiang commended Bai for being quite straightforward. So due to this, she won't beat about the bush anymore. She replied that, to put things bluntly, she wants Bai to be her man. He can also have her daughter if he's interested in her, because being her son-in-law wasn't out of the question either. Bai replied, wondering out loud what could be the reason for Song Ziqiang to want him so badly. Song Ziqiang turned back slightly, and with a sly smile, she answered by that with his heroic performance at the hospital, who in their right mind wouldn't want him, or in her daughter's case, have feelings for him. Hearing Song Ziqiang casually made mention of his deeds at the hospital shocked Bai greatly. He remembers destroying the hospital surveillance system and power supply, so how did Song Ziqiang know about what he did at the hospital so quickly? Song Ziqiang teasingly told him not to underestimate her capabilities. At least, during the time from the lobby to the monitoring room, her people could still trace him. Also, she was lucky to conveniently have someone in the hospital who was trapped at the ward. That person luckily saw everything and relayed everything Bai did at the hospital. Thanks to Bai killing all the zombies, she was safe and sound. Unfortunately for Bai, she took a video of his fight against the mutant. So as Song Ziqiang showed by her proof, she was confident in how lucky she was that among the survivors brought out of isolation by the military troops the next morning, she found a colleague of Su Xin who was quite familiar with that bastard Lu Feng. Hearing Lu Feng's name, Bai recalled the night before where he shared with Su Xin. She made mention of Lu Feng. Su Xin said that Lu Feng was in the bathroom with her, and not only did he try to forcefully have his way with her, he also pushed her towards the zombies, using her as a human meat shield. So as Su Xin continued to tell Bai everything that happened to Lu Feng, from running to the window, to getting his head smashed through the window's glass. Finally realizing Lu Feng was the one hanging on the window, Bai questioned Su Xin if Lu Feng wasn't dead when he came in. Su Xin replied that she believed he was. However, she hates Lu Feng so much for what he did to her, and wants nothing to do with him. Anyway, she feels much better now, and she would like to continue what they started earlier. Bai cheekily stared at a blushing Su Xin with one eye, and replied that he really didn't expect her to be a first-timer. Also, Su Xin's screams from just moments earlier was quite tragic. Su Xin apologizes and Bai answered that it was okay since they had plenty of time in the future. However, Su Xin was not having it. She replied that she must satisfy her lifesaver at any cost. So with that, she got on top and the rest was a wild marathon throughout the night. Back at the suburban freezer warehouse at the corridor freight elevator's first floor, Bai asked Song Ziqiang if she could tell him where the isolated survivors were. But Song Ziqiang tried to leverage this information by telling Bai to agree to being his. Then and only then will she tell him. Hearing this, Bai answered that Song Ziqiang had really underestimated him. Song Ziqiang said that Bai was right. With just this piece of information, it wouldn't match a man of his skill. She tried to continue, but Bai cut her off by saying that Song Ziqiang misunderstood what he said. What he implied was that Song Ziqiang knew little about him, because if she did, then she would have known that he couldn't be her man, but rather the other way around. She would become his woman instead. So with a sly grin, Bai activated his bone claws skill, trying to intimidate Song Ziqiang, and also show her what she was up against by extension. Seeing this, Song Ziqiang, with a visibly worried expression, asked if that was really a mutation of the zombie virus. Her bodyguard immediately got in front of her, alert and ready to fight Bai if it comes to it. However, Bai just casually waved his hand, deactivating the bone claw skill, continuing that if Song Ziqiang agrees to be his woman, she will also tell her what it was that he just did. With both parties at a stalemate, Bai asked Song Ziqiang what she thought about his offer. Song Ziqiang just smiled and replied that Bai also underestimates her as well. With just those claws, did he think she could win her over? Moreover, Bai already has Su Xin and she is pretty as well. Why will he be interested in an old lady such as herself? In a flash, Bai was delicately holding Song Ziqiang's chin, and with a touch of his unlimited riz, he replied that who wouldn't be tempted by such a beautiful woman. He continued by purposefully saying that everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, and at least in these days before the apocalypse, there were much more Song Ziqiang could do for him that Su Xin can't. The word apocalypse didn't go unnoticed by Song Ziqiang. She asked what just a few zombies could do. Zombies? They are not even worthy of being called a warm-up. Bai replied her with a devilish grin. Hearing this, Song Ziqiang knew that Bai knew more than what he was willing to share. More than she could even imagine, Bai replied. At this point, Song Ziqiang knew that they were both not the type that will submit to the other. So, she proposed a cooperation, her help for Bai's knowledge. Hearing this, Bai readily agreed as both parties shook on it. As they did, Bai commented on how conquering the Queen of Zhenqing was indeed not easy to do. Song Ziqiang replied that it wasn't. However, she'd never come across any man who could conquer her, and she is actually looking forward to that person. However, she encourages Bai to keep up with his effort. As they were filling each other out, a loud bang rang across the entire warehouse. It was a gunshot, alerting them to wonder what was going on. As the shootings intensify, Song Ziqiang explained to Bai that a night ago, Commander Huang of the Jiangcheng military region sent Captain Zhao to negotiate with her. They've requisitioned some refrigerated warehouses to store live zombies and survivors rescued from the isolated hospital. Confident that the rapid gunfire was from them, Song Ziqiang wondered curiously what could have gone wrong there to cause such a ruckus, since there were only around 30 zombies locked in the cold storage. She was genuinely confused because the zombies captured were hardly capable of moving, and the military had also stationed half a platoon there with them. Bai listened carefully, and thought that he didn't expect the discovery of the zombies to happen so quickly. This is due to their sluggishness in low temperature, but since the military wouldn't know that extreme conditions increase the probability of zombie mutation. At this moment, Bai had a suddenly realization: the suburban cold storage and mutated zombies were too obvious and coincidental to ignore. That location was indeed the third location of the 3 strange incidents that actually happened in Jiangcheng before the trial, the suburban bombing. So with a wide grin, Bai was excited, wondering what kind of mutation the zombie will be. He then tells the 2 women behind him that they need to go check it out. Meanwhile, at that location, several military men struggle to fend off a mutated zombie. Aiming for its mouth, one of the men throws a hand grenade directly at the mutated zombie, causing it to roar loudly, wallowing in pain. The hit also made it falls backwards, dusting the area as it crushes into the cold storage building. As the smoke of the hand grenade, together with the dust, engulfed the mutant entire figure, encasing it. Its figure hidden within the smoke, making the soldiers unable to see where the mutant was. Suddenly, a large figure grabbed a soldier and with a loud roar, the soldier was crushed to death. Seeing this, Supreme Commander, Captain Zhao, told his men that their weapons could not cause effective damage. So everyone should form a group with the people around them and spread out to attract the mutants' attention separately. They must hold out until reinforcements arrive. At that moment, Song Ziqiang appeared behind Captain Zhao, and while approaching, she told him that he should tell his men to cease fire and retreat. Confused, Captain Zhao turned around and asked what she meant by that. What I meant was, you, Captain Zhao, including your soldiers, can't injure that meat mountain of a creature. She then questioned if Captain Zhao wants his men to plunge into their deaths in vain anyway. This time, Song Ziqiang tells Captain Zhao to order his men to protect her cold storage employees and the survivors from the isolation hospital he brought from there, and he should hurry up about it. Hearing this, Captain Zhao replied that it was impossible. The mutant wasn't slow, and no one can escape without someone restraining it. At the same time, Lu Li, a survivor from the isolation hospital, was about to be crushed by the mutant, her face drenched in cold sweat as she watched the mutant's hand about to slam down on her. Song Ziqiang watched the scene with a smirk, commenting that Captain Zhao shouldn't worry about the mutant's restraint. She had someone who would take care of it. At that moment, Bai appeared at the scene and activated his bone claw skill, piercing the mutant's side. The soldiers helped Lu Li up to her feet, as she watched Bai with a sense of gratitude. Bai, however, was smirking, commenting on the toughness of the mutant's skin. Just a casual grab and he almost dislocated his arm. And from the way it's grown to such an extent, it seems like the mutant will be difficult to deal with. The mutant raised its hand, intending to smash Bai into the ground. However, as its hand approached him, Bai, with his fast reflexes and speed, used his claws to slice multiple wounds on the mutant's entire arm in an instant. He then lands in front of the mutant as it wallows in pain. Realizing this, the mutant clenched its teeth in anger as Bai casually walked towards it. Suddenly, the mutant sharply made a turnaround and smashed the cold storage warehouse, searching for something. Seeing all this, Captain Zhao worriedly asked Song Ziqiang if he was raising a monster. Song Ziqiang replied him with a cheeky grin that Bai wasn't a monster but her partner. In the closest storage room full of meat, the mutant intended to devour the meat to increase in size and strength. However, Bai stops it, teasing the mutant of wasting all these meat. He then activated his evolution devour as several tentacles spread out of him, devouring all the meat, and was also about to devour the mutant's arm. Seeing this, the mutant punched furiously at Bai with its other arm. Fortunately, he makes a leap over the mutant in time as the system chimed in that the devouring was complete. Host has consumed a large amount of frozen beef. Blacklight virus has evolved slightly, increasing host's strength and endurance. Seeing this, Bai smiled. This was truly a premium beef. Not only did it restore his energy but also made him level up. Realizing this, Bai knew that the mutant was trying to replenish its lost energy. The mutant looks exhausted, so it was time for it to die. Bai laughed menacingly at the mutant. Moments later, a massive beam of energy was shot at the mutant, shocking both Song Ziqiang and Captain Zhao. And as the mutant was falling to the ground, Bai followed with a skull-crushing punch to the mutant's forehead. However, immediately after, he flinched when the mutant raised its hands intending to crush Bai. Bai saw this and smirked mockingly, activating his evolution devour again. And as the tentacles burst out and gradually wrap around the mutant's entire body, and also restraining its hands, Captain Zhao was horrified and sweating bullets seeing this. However, Bai continued with his teasing as the mutant screamed needlessly. Captain Zhao could no longer stand idle and watch the scene unfold. He commented that Bai was definitely not human. Then, his face suddenly morphed as a wicked idea occurred to him. He thought of how, with both monsters restrained, it was the perfect opportunity to blow them up. So with a loud shout into his walkie-talkie, he ordered to have his reinforcements launch a missile to his desired coordinates. Fortunately, before he could give out the coordinates, a tap on his shoulder made him halt his actions. He turned to look at Song Ziqiang, who warned him to think carefully. Bai was helping them now, and he also saved his fucking ass a while ago. He doesn't need to do something stupid that will end badly for everyone. 10 minutes later, Bai had successfully devoured the mutant. However, the soldiers, under Captain Zhao's command, aimed their firearms at Bai, who looked unbothered by the threat. Captain Zhao told his men to be on high alert on Bai's every movements. Hearing this made Song Ziqiang displeased, so she reminds the captain about what she said earlier. Captain Zhao replied that he hasn't forgotten. However, if her partner decides to attack, then he will retaliate in kind. Closing his eyes, Bai felt an overwhelming surge of energy as the system prompt notified him that the first obtainment of a zombie virus variant Flesh Mountain. His strength form is primary and gained 500 virus points. Also, he unlocked the Virus King talent called Virus Injection. Seconds later, he opened his eyes, took a deep breath as his gaze sharpens. At that moment, another notification chimed in, notifying Bai that he devoured a rare mutant, which was a first-stage strength-type Flesh Mountain zombie. Therefore, all abilities of the Black Light virus will be greatly enhanced. And with that, his Bone Claws ability has evolved, growing in size and increasing in efficiency. Also, the strength form of the Flesh Mountain decomposed, and as a result, he gained another ability called the Heavy Hammer. This basically makes his hand increase in size massively, along with a superhuman strength. As he examines both abilities, Bai was delighted. Indeed, a significant evolution with the Heavy Hammer. He can feel an incredibly powerful force. However, it was unfortunate that there was nothing he could test it on. Seconds later, his hand retracted to its original form, and as it did, he reached into his jacket pocket for something. Smirking about his biggest gain of the day, the Flesh Mountain core, The Flesh Mountain core was a very rare material which could be used to craft equipment. However, Bai wondered what gains he might receive if he finds a way to control it, and even use it to create a flesh that can grow infinitely. As he contemplated on whether or not he should feed the Flesh Mountain core with more virus, thereby growing another Flesh Mountain to test its strength. Just then, Song Ziqiang called out to him, ending his reverie. Bai hides the Flesh Mountain core back in his pocket. At the same time, Lu Lai walks up to him with a bright smile, and as she stretched her hand, introducing herself, Bai told Lu Lai that he heard of her. She is a well-known journalist in Jiangxing, and also a somewhat famous internet celebrity. Curious, Bai then asked if Lu Lai was the one who secretly filmed him at the hospital. Hearing this, she replied him with her nervous smile that indeed, she was the one. Also, she wants to personally thank Bai for saving her twice. Bai closed the space between them and said saving her both times was just a mere coincidence. However, did she film his fight with the Flesh Mountain mutant? Lu Lai replied nervously that it was a professional habit. But if Bai did not like being recorded, she could delete it if he prefers it. However, Lu Lai did not expect Bai to tell her to keep it because he had a use for it, and she shouldn't send it out. They were suddenly interrupted by Captain Zhao, who informed him that their military district commander, Commander Huang, hopes that Bai could explain everything about himself and what he knows to the military. Looking at the captain, Bai remembered Huang Xingqiu, commonly known as Commander Huang, all too well. It was a name he would never forget. After the trials came, he coerced the awakened who were weak and alone, using them like pigs and dogs. At first, they used patriotism and national righteousness to comfort everyone, but later it was just arbitrary bearings and insults. Bai was one of them, struggling and starving, unable to even have a proper meal. The most ridiculous thing was, anyone who tries to leave was accused of treason and hunted down. This forced Bai to leave Jiangxing. So with those thoughts, Bai coldly stared at Captain Zhao, asking Song Ziqiang if he should oblige. Of course not, I don't know anything yet either, so why should you do what he says? Song Ziqiang replied Bai, who smirked asking what he should do then. Song Ziqiang told Bai that he doesn't need to worry, she will handle the situation personally. Seeing Song Ziqiang approaching, Captain Zhao suspiciously told her that she should understand the duty of being a citizen of this country, especially this city. However, Song Ziqiang was not having any of it. She stomped her heels firmly on the ground, and replied Captain Zhao that he should stop spouting nonsense like an official. What fucking duty was he referring to? He was just a platoon leader, not qualified enough to demand anything. Furthermore, he should go tell his master that if he has any issues, he should come to her himself. Hearing this, Captain Zhao was speechless. At that moment, one of his men came up from behind him and informed him that the isolated personnel were causing trouble, making a ruckus. What should they do about it? Hearing this made Captain Zhao gritted his teeth in anger. However, Bai questioned the soldier if there was someone named Lu Feng among the people. The soldier replied that there was, and from what he's seen, Lu Feng was the one causing the most trouble. Hearing that Lu Feng was alive, Bai asked Captain Zhao if he could see him. Captain Zhao readily obliged, knowing Lu Feng was the troublesome one among the lot. Moments later, Lu Feng came out of the building, delighted and asking if his dad called for him. Was that the reason why he was released? He continued boastfully that his dad, Lu Huinong, was the vice president of the first hospital. However, a tap on the shoulder shut him up, and as he looked worriedly at the person, Bai activated his skill, virus injection, and transmitted the zombie virus into Lu Feng's body. After that, he told Lu Feng that he had been looking for him because someone asked him to pass on a message to him. Lu Feng asked who Bai was, but Bai leaned closer to his ear, whispering that Su Zin told him everything that happened to her in his bed the night after. And from what Lu Feng did to her, Su Zin want him dead. Hearing this, Lu Feng began to sweat profusely, questioning Bai how Su Zin survived. It wasn't possible, and Bai was definitely lying. Suddenly, Bai stepped back, loudly telling everyone that Lin Feng was infected and was about to turn into a zombie. The sudden news made everyone alert, watching Lu Feng cautiously. Lu Feng was incredulous, saying Bai was just spouting nonsense. Was he playing him? He continued that Bai was the one about to turn into a zombie when he was done with him. Lu Feng then launched towards Bai, shouting that Su Zin was a bitch. How could she be with him? And this was a lie intending to trick him. Bai was going to die. At that moment, Lu Feng's anger clouded his reasoning. His eyes bulged out as the virus took over, transforming him into semi-mutated zombie. But before he could fully reach Bai, he activated his heavy hammer, punching Lu Feng. Lu Feng's entire upper body disappeared upon impact as the punch created a slight shockwave, shocking everyone. Seeing the results, Bai thought that the skill wasn't bad. It was more powerful than he previously thought. Meanwhile, Captain Zhao was watching Bai's mutated hand with a surprised look, questioning himself if Bai was a superhuman. Bai turned to Song Ziqiang, referring to her as his boss. He told her that he will relay some information to her when they get back. Hearing this shocked Song Ziqiang, so she told Bai to just call her Ziqiang or Song Jie from this very moment onwards. Puzzled, Bai asked why. Song Ziqiang grabbed Bai's hand and replied that she doesn't believe her partner should refer to her as boss. Besides, with this, it's still possible for her and those who also wants to be with him. Hearing this, Bai smirked, saying that everything will depend on her value and performance. Soon, the group was on the road. And while in the car, Song Ziqiang told Bai that she was taking him to her place for dinner. Hearing this, Bai readily agreed but replied that he shouldn't be disturbed for here on out till they reached her villa. He had something to take care of. It was time for the lottery draw, and he wanted to see if there were any good rewards for defeating the Meat Mountain. So with that, he opened the inventory and from the looks of it, his luck wasn't that bad. Surprisingly, he obtained 2 skill books. One was an active F-class skill, Rampage Bloodlust, which increases all attributes by 3 for 10 minutes with a cooldown of a day. And during cooldown, all attributes decreased by 50%. Seeing this, Bai knew that this rewards wasn't worth it, so he moved to the second rewards, which was an E-rank passive skill, Muscle Enhancement. This skill greatly increased muscle mass and double the growth rate of strength and constitution. Yeah, this wouldn't work either. As a regressor, Bai knew that those who used this in his previous life all turn out to be muscle freaks, greatly reducing their flexibility. However, Bai thought that although they were not useful for him, these skill books were quite valuable in any of the trial. Whether it's for building a faction or rallying people, they were quite useful to have. Oh, and speaking of building a faction, Bai thought it was time he started planning. The other rewards for killing the Meat Mountain amounted his gold coins to 6, his silver coins to 35 and his copper coins to 6, just enough to establish his own chart group. He will use the chart group to gather pioneers and help them lay a solid foundation before the trial. They might be useful in the future. The faction in the latest stages of the trial in his previous life were complex, making the relationships established in the early stages of the trial crucial. So with that, Bai created a chat group, costing him 5 gold coins. The system notified him to name his chat group, but Bai decided against it for now, canceling the naming. Bai intends to rebuild his White Demon Castle and remake it into a divine kingdom. And as for Heloise, he will make sure to let that bitch crawl and beg, becoming the lowest dog at his feet when he is done with her. And that was a promise. The scene shifts to 3 hours later, at Song Ziqiang's private villa. Song Ziqiang, holding her chin, pondered. Based on what you said, in the cosmic trial, more than 90% of the population will become monsters and some will be gifted and become evolvers. Also, modern conventional means such as firearms and most electronic devices will be rendered useless. Upon hearing her analysis, Bai smirked, confidently saying that it was unfortunate, but that's all he can tell her at the moment. However, it should be enough for you to deal with the immediate challenges and gain an advantage, am I correct? No, not enough, Mr. Chun Bai. I will get straight to the point then. How can I become your person? Song Ziqiang asked with a serious expression. Well, the first thing must be your ability. I don't need useless people. Second is loyalty, and I mean absolute loyalty, like a loyal dog to its master. As Song Ziqiang continued to stare at Bai, she paused for a moment, her gaze exuding a confident decision. She replied that loyalty she can provide, and as for ability, she believed she was qualified. After all, influence, money and status were at her disposal in Jiangqing. No one can compare to her, but little did she know that the rules and values after the trial will be completely new. Her current power, status and money will have no value other than making a target to the idea of enslaving her and her loved ones more tempting to anyone. Bai recalls the gruesome scene of Song Ziqiang and her daughter, Song Gu, captured, their hands bound and hanging by a rope at an auction house. Song Ziqiang then asked Bai, what's the difference between a loyal dog here and being a plaything elsewhere? Because at the moment they both seemed like receiving the short end of the stick anyway. Hearing this, Bai smiled, as if expecting this question. He replied that the difference was that she will be given freedom where she can exert her strength if she wishes, and a master who won't restrict her out of fear of her power. The reason being that Bai will always be stronger and above her. So even if she gain immerse power compared to Bai, she will always come out short. Hearing this made Song Ziqiang smile, and while flicking her short hair, she replied that she suddenly had a feeling that if she hesitates any longer, she will miss out on a very important opportunity. So with that comment, she immediately stood properly, then slowly got on her knees. And without any hesitation, she calmly said she was willing to serve Bai, not forgetting to call him master. Seeing this scene, Bai commented that he's not gonna lie. The reputation and status that Song Ziqiang currently has had made the emotional value she provides extremely high. It is intoxicating, almost like an addictive drug, and quite interesting. Bai delicately held her chin, saying he wants to witness her charm up close, in person. But first, he had some tasks for her to handle. At another room in the villa, Luli continued to watch the video on her phone as Chinger received a message from Song Zicheong, telling her to let Luli send Bai's video to her. Then, she should take her home to rest because she's been through enough for the past few days. Also, she should find someone to keep Bai's posts prominently displayed on major forums. The post should be titled, "To the Pioneers," with the post ID Pioneer White Emperor. Chinger went to Luli, recounting the message to her. Hearing this, Luli asked if there really was nothing else she could do to help. "No, go home. Rest up and calm down. You've been through enough," Chinger replied softly. Reluctantly, Luli agreed. But as she continued to watch the video, she commented that although she nearly died at the hands of a zombie earlier, strangely, the shock she received doesn't seem as intense as when she first saw one. Luli doesn't know if it's because she has accepted the possibility of dying at the hands of a zombie, or maybe because Bai's strength makes her feel at ease. Back to Bai. A call suddenly came in. It was Song-gu, calling her mother. As soon as Bai picked up the call, Song-gu, thinking it was her mother on the other end, asked to confirm if she really wanted her back home. Was there something wrong? Bai responded, making Song-gu inquire why he had her mother's phone. Where is she? Bai mockingly replied that her mother is busy at the moment, working and eating, so she doesn't have time to talk to her at present. However, it was important that she comes home immediately. Song-gu didn't have the chance to give a reply before the call was cut, leaving her speechless. As she stares at her phone, enraged, Song-gu vowed to make Bai kneel under her feet sooner or later for what just happened. Like a pet, Bai patted Song Zicheong's head. She then asked if Bai can protect her daughter also. Bai replied that Song-gu lacks any ability, and her character has been spoiled by her mother's indulgence. However, if Song Zicheong works hard enough, he can guarantee that Song-gu will most likely not become a monster when the trial arrives. Hearing this, Song Zicheong's cheeks flushed red, blushing profusely. She thanked Bai for his consideration. The scene shifts to a secret warehouse at Suburban. In the car, Song-gu questioned her mother how she can believe something so absurd. "Are you sure you're not being deceived by Chun Bai? I stopped you from looking for Chun Bai last night because of this. After we get off the car, don't speak and just observe quietly." Outside, Chinger told Bai that she visited all the places rumored to have zombies and monsters in the entire city the previous day. In the end, only this place was found. This place used to be an underground casino, but now all the gamblers inside have turned into zombies. There were about 160 of them, and I didn't find any special zombie like Meat Mountain. Hearing this, Bai thought of the zombie slaughterhouse. Could this be the place? Bai questioned himself in disbelief. No, it can't be. The hospital fit the description because they're indoors, and also it was the Meat Mountain because it's extremely difficult to kill. And this place is remote, so if something happens, it's hard for people to remember and spread it. He then asked Chinger, "Are you sure you went to all the places rumored to have zombies and monsters, but only found them here?" "Yes." Hearing her confirmation, Bai pondered. It seems that someone is still collecting zombies, and the place where he places them should be the zombie slaughterhouse. The military only contain a few dozen zombies at most, but this person wants to collect all the zombies and monsters. Is he a curious adventurer or a pioneer who knows some information? This is getting quite exciting. Bai then demanded for the door to be opened. So as the two guards begun to slowly creak open the massive gate in terror, the bloodthirsty zombies started to rush out with creepy sounds and terrifying noises. Their hungry eyes fixed on the person in front of them. They look like they haven't eaten in 1,000 years. The guard panicked as he himself didn't expect the horde of zombies to be in such frenzy. Then the horde of bloodthirsty zombies dashed towards Bai, screaming, and Bai stood there, preparing himself. Some jumped towards him while others crawled at him at an unbelievable pace. Bai, as cool as ever without breaking a sweat, in a flash, kicked the immediate zombie in the stomach, and used that momentum to launch himself in the air. In the air, he grabbed two zombies and smashed them on the ground. Su Zin took her phone and immediately started recording while Song-gu watched in horror, sweat dripping down her face like she'd been exercising the whole day. A while later, the fight was over as Bai, using his virus absorption, sucked the virus from over 100 zombies. He stood on top of a pile of their corpses, the virus radiating off his body in waves. The system congratulated Bai on obtaining the title Zombie Hunter by killing over 300 zombies. With this new title came with an E-rank skill Zombie Slayer, which boosts all attributes of +5 and also increases damage to a zombie by 5%. The system also informed him that he had collected 500 samples of zombie-class viruses, which could be used to exchange for the zombie virus serum formula. This was achieved using his virus points in the talent tree zombie virus entry. Bai was surprised seeing this. A devilish smirk formed on his lips as he thought of the possibilities. A zombie virus serum formula? This is a valuable item. Even awakened talents can sometimes be troubled by the zombie viruses. The system then asked if Bai wants to unlock the zombie formula, which would cost him 300 virus points. So as he chose yes, he thought that after all, not everyone has talents immune to viruses and ultra-strong physique. Bai then came outside and called Song Ziqiong and everyone to come inside. He asked Song Ziqiong if she remembered what he told her before they set off. Of course, holding a bat, Song Ziqiong replied with a knowing grin. Behind her was the three girls. So as Chinger and Su Zin confidently stare ahead with a stern face, Song Go covered her mouth, trying not to throw up. She finds the entire scene disgusting. As they entered the warehouse, Song Ziqiong commented that fighting zombies with cold weapons would greatly reduce the chance of turning into a monster when the trial comes. But killing zombies unharmed was a definite way of not turning into a monster when the trial arrives. Holding a zombie by the neck, Bai asked who wanted to go first. It had to be one after the other since Bai wants to examine their strength and skills up close. Chinger stepped forward, saying she'd like to be the first. Hearing this, Bai let loose of the zombie, who dashes forward at Chinger. Chinger did the same as well, and as she got close enough, she grabbed hold of the zombie's arm, swiftly turned around, then with great force, body slammed the zombie to the ground, breaking its neck in the process. Bai observed the brief fight and was impressed with Chinger's fast speed, ruthless and accurate assessment. Next was Song Ziqiong, who smacked the zombie's face with her bat, then delivered several continuous hits to the zombie's head while on the ground. Bai noticed that Song Ziqiong's strength wasn't enough to knock the zombie down in one hit, but more importantly, it took more than 10 hits to finish it off. Su Zin soon followed after, panting while lying on the ground with the zombie. However, the zombie was unconscious, then slowly lost all signs of movement, indicating its death. Bai assessed her strength, which was too weak. Su Zin got tackled by the zombie, but she managed to kill it by relying on her familiarity with the human body structure. Song Ziqiong gave her bat to her daughter and told her that it was her turn. But Song Go was scared shitless, even to the point that she peed on herself, shouting that she can't do it. Seeing this, Bai didn't waste any time in failing her. He also points out her peeing session and her unwillingness to fight. He then calls for Song Ziqiong, who hurriedly ran to his side, although she was still concerned for her daughter. Bai told her that if Chinger had gone to all the places where there were rumors of zombies and monsters but still found nothing, this meant that something fishy was happening that required a thorough investigation. Song Ziqiong responded in agreement to investigate, but about her daughter, Bai cut her off, saying that it was too bad, especially for Song Gu. He doesn't have time to slowly train everyone, so she had to arrange their practice, including her daughters. This answer worried Song Ziqiong because Bai won't be there to eliminate the virus if something unexpected happens. Hearing this, Bai handed her a paper, and when she looked at it, she was surprised. Confused, she asked what it was. But upon a close inspection, she noticed that it was a note containing the zombie virus serum formula. Song Ziqiong remarked that the steps were so complicated, but Bai told her that she could put the materials of the formula to generate it herself if she so chooses. This was the preciousness of potion formulas. Upon hearing this, she smiled, thanking Bai for his trust in her. Song Ziqiong assured Bai that she would do her best to complete the task he has entrusted to her, and keeping the formula safe had become one of her utmost priority. Satisfied with her answer, Bai replied that she should go do the task he had assigned her. And also, have someone to send me back to the villa. Of course, sir. I will have Chinger take you to the villa as per your command. Later during the day, Bai, while checking his phone, wondered how many people had seen his post. Not knowing if anyone had contacted him beforehand, he checked his messages. Upon checking, he was speechless, seeing the responses of everyone as they were mocking him, and even asked him which mental hospital he had crawled out from. However, something caught his eye and he became a bit serious upon seeing it. It was a private message from someone named Shil. In the message, Shil said that he knows about Pioneer because he is one too. Shil was curious about what Bai knew. Seeing this, Bai was thrilled that not everyone was a loser, as there were some gains as well. So he asked Shil about his talent, to which Shil responded that he had an S-level talent, mental control. Bai then tells Shil that he could find a communication channel on the panel. It was unlocked to Pioneer in advance, so he should search for a nameless group chat group 001, as some basic things had been explained by him in that group. Bai then continued that if Shil had any problems after reading them, then he could directly come to him. At that moment, he saw that a person named Han Xiao had just joined the chat group. Han Xiao then asked if he could invite a person named Shuichuan. Upon hearing the name, Bai was stunned. He pondered if this Shuichuan is the emperor-level powerhouse in his previous life who also goes by that name. It must be him. Bai got excited about him joining the group, so he responded to Han Xiao that he could. And if he noticed any other pioneers, he could invite them all. Immediately after, a mischievous laugh rang in the air as Bai saw that Shuichuan had just joined his chat group. Meanwhile, in an alleyway during the next day, Luli was on the phone with Song Ziqiong, who asked her if there were any results in her investigation of collecting zombies. Luli responded that there was, and it was the forces of the Jiangxing Lord. They had sent all the collected zombies to a Mankai container yard near the Jiangxing Wharf. Luli also mentioned that she had sent someone to gather more information, and it was time for her to meet them as agreed. However, they hadn't returned, so she didn't see the need to wait any longer. At that moment, to her horror, 2 people fell in front of her. Both pretty much dead. She was terrified by the sight. The culprit was at the window, laughing while staring at her. Seeing this, Luli was stunned and scared, shaking uncontrollably. Still in a panicked state, she told Song Ziqiong on the line that she had been discovered. The scene shifted back to the villa. Inside, Bai was having a chat with a person named Lu Huai, who just recently joined the group. Lu Huai told Bai that his talent instructions were a bit obscure, so he hoped if Bai can help him understand it. Bai asked him to send it, and as he did, it was a Yin wood body of rank SS. Bai searched for it on his panel, and it showed that Yin wood body was the most Yin of woods. The source of life was endless. And with Yin's soul entering the body, it was the land of eternal life for activating the wood body. It costs 1 spirit to activate, and for Yin's soul it costs 1 constitution to also activate. It was a talent of SS level, so Bai told Lu Huai that the cost of activating the ability was quite high, and if his spirit was more than 3 then he could activate the Yin wood body. Lu Huai said he had 5 spirits, so he is fortunate then. He thanked Bai for providing that information. Suddenly, Song Ziqiong came in, rushing towards Bai. Seeing her urgency, Bai asked her why she was in such a hurry. What was going on? Song Ziqiong responded that Luli had found out that all the zombies had been sent to the Mankai container yard, but she was caught in the process. Song Ziqiong also mentioned that the opposing party was asking her to negotiate. Upon hearing this, Bai stood up and asked surprisingly whether they really contacted her, and if Luli had given her up. Song Ziqiong was stunned hearing this. Song Ziqiong bowed down in front of Bai, stating that she raised Luli herself, so there was no way she would betray her. Moreover, she was discovered due to the people she was commanding from behind, so the fault lies with those people she sent out to investigate. After hearing her out, Bai decided that if that was the case, then he would save her. Song Ziqiong thanked Bai for this, and as the scene shifts back to the Mankai container yard, to be specific, in Zone B, we see that Luli was seriously tied to a chair by the same guy from earlier, Xingmeng. Xingmeng was also a pioneer, and as he poured himself a glass of wine, he commented that Luli was a bit ignorant in the situation she was in. He also hadn't touched her yet out of respect she has for Song Ziqiong. If Song Ziqiong chooses to submit to him after she arrives, then Luli would be her subordinate. However, if she chooses not to, well then, she and Song Ziqiong would just unwillingly be his playthings. Luli felt uncomfortable hearing this as she tries desperately to loosen the rope. Seeing her discomfort, Xingmeng got close to her, and with a mocking smile, he told her that they should toast to their possible upcoming cooperation. Also, Luli should be mindful not to spit the wine out recklessly after consumption. Xingmeng seemed to be delighted in seeing the fear in Luli's eyes when he made mention of punishing her. "What? Do you not agree with my toasting?" Suddenly, Bai's voice rang out from the other side of the room, where he seems to be cutting a steak leisurely at the table that was prepared to invite Song Ziqiong. He commented that there was no grace in his toasting, so why should he punish the girl for his poor manners? Or maybe the girl doesn't like drinking. Seeing Bai, Xingmeng was shocked. He wondered when Bai came in without his knowledge. Bai then stood up with a steak in hand, and as he approached Luli, he asked her if she was hungry. He continued that he had tried the steak and it wasn't that bad. Seeing this, Xingmeng was getting annoyed with Bai, who dismissed his presence like he was a joke to him. Bai then fed Luli and coolly told her that he was here to take her home. Luli's cheeks flushed bright red as she stared at Bai in admiration. Xingmeng then asked if Song Ziqiong sent him, but soon he denied it himself, realizing that if Bai could get this close to him without him noticing, then Bai must be a pioneer too. This made perfect sense to Xingmeng. So as Bai untied Luli from her restraints, Xingmeng did nothing and leisurely waited while sipping his wine. Bai then tells Luli to wait outside in the car with Song Ziqiong. He will be there soon. Hearing this, Luli agreed and left. With Luli gone, Xingmeng asked to confirm if Song Ziqiong was already under Bai's control. "That's right," Bai answered with a confident smile. Xing Meng found it interesting. He knows it's unlikely that the Queen of Jiangqing would surrender so easily, right? So Bai must have a lot of interesting methods. Maybe we can exchange ideas. I'm still very interested in the current events happening. Among the 3 major forces in Jiangqing, I had subdued the Lord, and as it stands, you had also subdued the Queen. Now only the commander was left. Xing Meng then asked Bai to assist him in becoming the king of Jiangqing, and he would make Bai his confidant. He offered Bai a toast, already ahead of himself, thinking that Bai wouldn't refuse, and that's exactly what he just did after that. Xing Meng was shocked hearing this. He then got angry and threw the glass of wine on the floor. He then tells Bai not to worry as his talent was an S level, the highest level there was. Curious, he asked Bai if he would like to drink the punishment wine. Bai then shared that before he came there, he looked around and he found out that not only was Xing Meng collecting zombies, but he was also creating zombies with living people. Having such a powerful ability like yours is harmful and useless, so it was better for you to die early. Also, you're not worthy of my assistance because my talent was an SSS level. Xing Meng laughed upon hearing this. He took out his weapon and told Bai that his talent was called Slaughter Progression. He explains that it could permanently transfer parts of the attributes of the killed target to himself, so with this, he could grow indefinitely. This invincible top-level ability was only of S level. However, yours is SSS level. Are you afraid that you will instantly become a god? Bai responded that he was close enough but he can't tell him. Inwardly, he pondered, thinking Xing Meng's ability turns out to be an unlimited growth pure combat type talent. And that claw, it's definitely an equipment, right? Xing Meng had had enough of the chit-chat, so he dashes towards Bai, shouting that Bai was an arrogant person. He hopes Bai would increase his attributes after his death. Don't disappoint me too much. Bai nullified the attack by clashing it with his bone claw skill. Both parties turned to look at each other before deciding to launch at each other's throats. However, when Xing Meng saw Bai cancel that attack, he understood that he had a shape-shifting talent which was indeed interesting, but Bai's strength wasn't enough to overpower him. Hearing this, Bai thought, was he referring to the skill? It seemed like this guy didn't explain his abilities fully to me. Anyway, I don't know what effect this skill of his has, so I have to be extra careful. It was in this moment that Xing Meng leaped in the air, and his claws emitting a killing aura. Bai took on a defensive stance and retracted his bone claw skill, and activated his heavy hammer skill. He launched towards the incoming Xing Meng. Their fists clashed, creating a big impact in their surroundings, breaking the ground in the process. At this moment, the immediate clash of the 2 heavy fists sent Xing Meng flying. Fortunately for him, he managed to stop himself, making a sturdy landing. Then Xing Meng dashed towards Bai in an instant, and with his claws, he aims for Bai's neck. Bai quickly switched to his bone claw and blocks the attack, then counters with his heavy hammer with his other hand, preparing to land another blow. But unexpectedly, Xing Meng just effortlessly blocks it with his hand, which made him quite smug. Is this your SSS class talent? That's all? Are you even trying? You weakling! Hearing this, Bai just laughed. My talent has been at work for a while now. You're just too dumb to notice. Unaware of the true situation, Xing Meng thought Bai was just bluffing. In the next second, he instantly appeared in front of Bai and sent him flying. Clearly, all your attributes are weaker than mine. Stop pretending. In the face of absolute power, you're just a... Before Xing Meng could finish his sentence, he started spewing blood non-stop the next moment after. At the same time, the system kept popping up with various virus infection notifications, including the most severe like HIV. Seeing the baffled look on Xing Meng's face, I couldn't help but remark, this guy's constitution is really good. It really took so long for the virus to take effect. How does it feel to suffer so many diseases at once? Xing Meng's defenses broke instantly, but he still charged at Bai in his current state. In this situation, how could he be a match for Bai? So with a single strike, Bai pierced through his body, and at the same time, his devouring skill was activated. I hope your talent won't disappoint me. Sure enough, the system not only notified that the black light virus had completed its initial awakening, but also gained the ability to access some memories of the devoured targets, and a chance to acquire any skills they had mastered. This left Bai very satisfied. Bai then picked up the equipment dropped by Xing Meng to identify it, and it was clear he had killed more than just one mutated zombie, as he even had a C-grade crafting blueprint. This meant his luck attribute was quite high, but now all these are Bai's. After handling the matter, Bai recalled his experiences from the day he returned to the past until now. It has been a rewarding journey, and Bai even successfully subdued the once high and mighty queen of Jiangqing. Boss, please get in the car. In these last few days, we need to properly plan and prepare for the developments after the descent. Back at the villa, Bai confirmed that all the tasks he had assigned to Song Ziqiang and the others were completed. Luli had collected a population data from the area around the villa, so they could start cleaning up as soon as the apocalypse begins. Su Xin had also finished purchasing all the supplies necessary. Bai finally announced that the timing of the apocalypse has arrived. In the Pioneers chat group, the Pioneers promptly received Bai's message. There's only 10 minutes until the trials descend, so don't be complacent about your early advantages and rare talents. Bai then urged them to stay calm as the trials bring dangers they couldn't even imagine. The reason was he didn't want anyone from the group to disappear in 10 minutes after. Some were impatient, some were nervous, and others were excited as time ticked by. But one thing common was that they were all grateful for Bai's help and guidance. They began to share their thoughts as time continued to tick away. Bai hurriedly asked Song Ziqiang and the others to come to the window to see because soon, this peaceful and tranquil scene would disappear completely. A 10-second countdown began, and Song Gu began to shiver in fear beside Qinger. Qinger calms her down, reminding her not to be afraid, while Song Ziqiang and Su Xin appeared confident. 3 seconds left. 2, 1. Time's up. The familiar sensation hit everyone again, and the apocalypse trial officially began. The surviving humans became evolvers, and most of the rest were either killed by other species that appeared during the trial or eventually turned into zombies. At the same time, spatial rifts began to appear in the skies, and at this moment, Bai quietly watched everything unfolds outside through the window. Suddenly, the system's voice sounded, "Time hourglass ownership confirmed. Beginning binding." Not good. Song Ziqiang and the others were still there, and Bai couldn't let anyone know about the hourglass. But just as he was about to speak, he was surprised to find that time seemed to have stopped for everyone but him. Even the crashing airplane also froze in midair, and then the hourglass began to glow. A purple light instantly surged into Bai's body. The time hourglass binding was successful, and its panel also displayed. Unexpectedly, Bai had also gained a life-saving skill, allowing him to save his state and load from that saved-up state. With such a powerful life-saving skill, a cooldown of an hour couldn't even be considered a downside. As the time stop ended, Song Ziqiang came to Bai's side and asked, "Did you just give any instructions, or did I hear wrong?" Bai told her she hadn't heard wrong, and immediately instructed them to ensure the villa's security. The nights after the trial's arrival are very dangerous, and we need to be vigilant at all times. As soon as daylight breaks, everyone need to start clearing the villa area. By the next morning, as expected, zombies had already surrounded the villa. Seeing this, Song Ziqiang immediately activated her S-class talent, Amethyst Eyes, and used the ability Insight Crystal, which can view the target's attribute panel and weaknesses. She resolved the zombie situation in an instant. Meanwhile, Qinger's talent was the A-class Path of the Assassin. Already strong, her talent made her seem like a possessed god of death, making her clear dozens of zombies in mere moments. On the other side, the wounded people were brought before Su Xin. Su Xin. She awakened the B-class talent, High-Speed Recovery. She was responsible for treating injured survivors inside the villa, and so far, everything looked good with no accidents occurring. Bai felt quite relieved. He then left the situation at the villa to everyone, and used the memories of his previous life to quickly head towards Jiangcheng University. At this time in his previous life, a strange symbol had appeared over Jiangcheng University, and it took him a long time to understand the meaning of that symbol. By the time he did, he regretted it. It was too late, so this time, Bai intends on seizing the opportunity. He quickly arrived at Jiangcheng University, and from the looks of it, it seems that where he had arrived was the place where the symbol had projected a certain deity's descending. Without hesitation, Bai eagerly searched forward. Suddenly, someone called out to him, "Hey young evolver, please wait. It's rare to see such a powerful little fellow like you at the beginning of this ordeal. I'm a merchant. Are you interested in doing some trades with me?" Upon hearing this, Bai was overjoyed. This was exactly what he had been hoping for. "It would be my greatest honor to conduct a transaction with you. A kind and fair, generous, wealthy, and powerful person such as yourself. I humbly greet the Lord of Trading, Lord Leto." It seems Lord Leto came in his real form in the past as well. Hearing this, Lord Leto was flattered, so as he gave Bai a card, he made mention that Bai was destined to meet him. Consider this as a meeting gift. It was his gold membership card to the Goblin Chamber of Commerce. To purchase items from the Goblin Chamber of Commerce with this card, you will receive a 12% discount on every item. Upon seeing this, Bai wondered. In his last life when he had met Lord Leto, he was immune to compliments and praise, so it was good he was quick on the uptake. Bai took the card, expressing his gratitude, and acknowledging Lord Leto's generosity. Lord Leto noticed that Bai was willing to trade. If so, Then he was going to show him the products available. A Thunderwalker scroll of S grade and a Reaper's Touch. Also an S- grade. Seeing all the precious items, Bai was stunned. Also, seeing the Thunderwalker profession scroll from his previous life indicated that it was purchased from Lord Leto. There were also so many other precious profession scrolls and items. Bai apologized to Lord Leto, explaining that he wanted to buy all the things he would offer, but unfortunately, he couldn't afford them right now. Understandingly, Lord Leto replied that he knew. At the beginning of the trials, evolvers wouldn't have much currency on hand, so Lord Leto reassured Bai that his products weren't junk. If Bai works hard to become wealthy, his anticipation upon meeting him again in the future for trading is guaranteed. Bai pondered for a while, then stated that although he couldn't afford to buy his products, he had heard that the gods couldn't participate directly in the trials. However, they can invest in evolved beings to make a profit. Lord Leto, I believed you must have come here with the intention of investing, right? Hearing this, Lord Leto was impressed. Bai's insight and knowledge was better than average. You want my investment, don't you? Yes. Yes, I do, Lord Leto. But I also heard you possessed a treasure that's highly regarded by all the gods and no evolver could refuse it. I ask you to invest that treasure in me, and I promise you that you won't regret it. Indeed, I do have such treasure, but such investment must be profitable, and this treasure was something that all the gods would covet. What makes you think that you could offer more than it's worth? Even if you're my admirer, doing a business that would lead to a loss isn't in me. Hearing this made Bai transform, showcasing his bone claw and heavy hammer skill. Bai activated his full power, demonstrating what his SSS level talent was capable of. Seeing this, Lord Leto was fascinated. This is indeed a peculiar talent unlike any I had ever seen. It seems Blue Star trial will be quite interesting. Okay. I will admit that your offer is tempting, but I never had any plans on investing this much early in the trial. However, I have decided to make an exception and give you a chance. Cherish this opportunity, kid. If it weren't for the fact that you don't have the aura of another god and gifted, I wouldn't have agreed. Hearing this, Bai was delighted, so he promptly asked Lord Leto if he could have the precious investment. No, not quite. A demonstration is not enough. Your talent doesn't necessarily represent your future. Even among the gods, there were those with less than an A-level talent. So to receive my highest level of investment, you need to prove your worth through your own strength and growth. Suddenly, the system's voice sounded. The god of goblins and trading Leto had issued an SSS-ranked mission named the Ultimate Investment. Do you accept? Without hesitation, Bai directly accepted the mission request. Leto gave a coin to Bai, explaining that whenever he completes the task, he could use the coin to summon his shadow. I hope you won't keep me waiting for too long. Hearing this made Bai ask Lord Leto if he could show him the desired treasure that even all the gods would covet. Seeing no problem with the request, Leto revealed a golden scroll dazzling with golden light. The treasure was named the Dual Procession Scroll, an SSS grade special item. The Dual Profession Scroll allows the user to have two professions simultaneously, enabling dual profession attribute, growth attribute, bonuses, and skills to take effect. Upon seeing this, Bai was stunned, wondering if it was really a dual profession. Could my eyes be deceiving me? Bai's daydreaming was cut short as Leto informed him that the transaction had concluded. It was time for him to go, but before leaving, Leto remarked that his harvest of the day was quite pleasant and he hopes that Bai could complete the task. Immediately after his departure, Bai opened his mission panel. On it was the description, stating that to obtain the most valuable investment from the smartest and greatest goblin, the god of trade, Bai needed to provide enough proof of his worth. His objective was to find a special copy of the secret realm in Jiangcheng University, defeat the creature inside that Leto was interested in, and obtain a part of its body to give to him. The reward would be decided by Leto upon completion. Bai was impressed reading this. A reward decided by only Leto. He's truly a god of trade, he said. Bai also knew that Lord Leto's reputation in the previous life was good and legit. This meant if he did a good job, he wouldn't suffer any loss afterwards. Now, his biggest problem was to find the secret realm in Jiangcheng University. In Bai's previous life, he had never heard of a secret realm in the early days in Jiangcheng University, which only signifies that it was well hidden. He began to ponder where he should start looking first. The scene then shifts to the gymnasium of Jiangcheng University, where two guys and a girl were bullying the rest trapped in the gymnasium with them. Their leader, Tom, demanded the other students to take off their clothes and beg to be his servants in a manner that pleased him. He threatens to harm them if they didn't comply. Furious, they refuse, calling Tom a piggy bastard. Hearing this, Tom got excited and continues with his threats. If you all are willing to die, then I will fulfill your wish. But don't think for a second that I will let you die easily. The girl in his group, Mia, tried to convince Tom that he was going too far. But what she received in return was a slap across the face as Tom tells her to fuck off. Suddenly, a massive commotion occurred at the entrance, removing the debris in the process. Everyone was startled seeing this. At the entrance was Bai, asking Tom if he was responsible for beating the rest of the students. Hearing this, Tom smiled, proudly admitting he was indeed the one. What are you going to do about it? However, in the next second, Bai was upon him in an instant, shocking him and his minion and also Mia. With his bone claw, Bai tells Tom to go meet the King of Hell, slicing through him without any resistance. And like an idiot, his minion dashes towards Bai from behind. Mia was scared shitless, her expression highlighting how fucked up she was. As Bai holds the minion's lifeless figure by the head, he proceeds to ask if anyone among them was from the medical faculty. He was looking for something and needed assistance from someone familiar with the medical faculty. The students immediately began to ask themselves which person among them was from the medical department. It seems that there were no medical students in sight, but suddenly one of the girls, Gia, pointed at Mia. So as Mia laid on the floor in panic, Gia continues that she remembers Mia was from the medical department. Upon hearing this, Bai turned to Mia, who was still on the floor. Mia immediately started pleading, begging Bai not to kill her. She didn't hit anyone, and although she may be white, she believes in her heart that she's one of them. Upon hearing this, the guys behind her laugh hysterically, while Gia turned her head away in embarrassment at Mia's audacity. Mia continued that if Bai was to spare her life, she'll do anything in return. Gia reiterated that Mia didn't participate in any wrongdoing, and had even tried to stop the two guys. Bai replied that he understands. The very next day, outside the university's gymnasium, Bai informs everyone that Mia will stay with him, but everyone must leave. When they leave, they should follow the trail of zombie corpses to the Jiang City East Mountain Villa area. Upon arrival, report with the name Chin Bai, and the people there will help you settle. Hearing this, everyone became tense, expressing their concern that the city was full of zombies, so how could they possibly leave? Additionally, the Jiang City East Mountain Villa was far from the university. They feared they could die on the way there. Bai reassured them that he had cleared almost all the zombies along the way, so they didn't need to worry as much as they wouldn't be in constant danger. He points out that they were all survivors, which means they were gifted evolvers as well. If they are too scared to face the zombies now, what would they do when the zombies and monsters start growing in numbers and evolve as well? If they don't start now, one thing is certain, they would be as good as dead in the near future. Upon hearing this, everyone was stunned, their expression highlighting the gruesome reality that awaits them if they refuse to level up their abilities. Gia was the first to speak up, thanking Bai and promising to set off with everyone immediately as soon as they can. As everyone leave, Mia asked Bai why she couldn't leave with them. Why would you keep me here? Then, a salacious thought sprouted in Mia's mind, making her blush profusely. She concluded that since all the native students in Jiangcheng University happens to like foreign beauties, Bai wasn't any exception. Why else would Bai keep her by his side? Mia proceeds to tell Bai not to use violence against her. She was willing to be his wildest horse. Hearing this, Bai smiled and told her she misunderstood him. He wasn't interested in a horse ridden by thousands. Did you forget? I remember mentioning that I needed someone to help me find something in the medical department. Hearing this, Mia felt embarrassed and apologized, admitting that she was so scared before that she hadn't heard anything. And as she got over her brief embarrassment, Mia furiously shouted, telling Bai to not insult her like that. She hadn't been ridden by anyone, let alone thousands of people, and she can prove it. Hearing this made Bai reply that he got it. However, he couldn't help but smile at how quickly she got riled up. A while later, they left the university's gymnasium. Mai was visibly tired, so she started to complain, saying she was very tired from walking so much. Can they take a break and rest for a bit? Of course not. I'm in a hurry, so we have to go now. And with those words, Bai held Mia's waist, pulling her along for the run as she whines about her shirt. A few minutes later, they reached the medical department research building, where Mia was a little frustrated, accusing Bai of being too pushy. She explains that if her foot hadn't caught her shirt at that last second, it would have been troublesome to be dressed in only her undergarment. Looking at the building, Bai asked Mia if this was really the research lab. Yes, it is. There is a research room on the 3rd floor that only professors could enter. It is said to contain many samples and information about bacteria and viruses. Also, the passageway that leads to the underground basement isn't a garage, but the home of the anatomy teacher and the incinerator. So if there was anything hidden in the medical department that no one knows about, this was the only place she can think of. Hearing Mia's explanation, Bai nodded in understanding. The two then proceed to the virus research laboratory of the university, where there were numerous types of viruses. Seeing this, Bai was impressed and delighted. He remarked that he didn't expect the university to have such a treasure trove. Bai didn't need any invitation as he began to absorb all the viruses he could find. And along with his virus absorption came with several notifications, further elevating his power. However, during the process, the system notified him that he had gained enough influenza virus. The number of points needed to upgrade the influenza virus to a skill has been met, but doing so will reduce his points once again. With a surprised smile, Bai chose to upgrade. The upgrade was successful as he obtained the skill Epidemic Influenza. This skill releases a flu virus that infects a target within its range, reducing all of the target's attributes and adding a negative condition. Additionally, it has a feature called sneezing, which interrupts all chanting, accumulation, charging, and aiming when triggered. A wide smile crept on Bai's lips as he reads the notification. This is indeed a strong skill, capable of causing interruptions and offer a powerful control, especially with the addition of the sneeze effect. It was in that moment that Bai realized that when he was going through the virus tree, he hadn't paid enough attention to the reality of the viruses. It seems that he needed to pay more attention to this aspect when upgrading in the future. Knowing this, Bai also finally realized how terrifying an SSS level talent really is. He still had some virus points left, and considering that the trial of the Goblin God will definitely not be simple, he decided to use them to increase his strength first. Bai then proceeds to open the Blacklight virus skill tree. He unlocked two passive skills, the first being the Flying Eaves and Walking Walls. With this skill, he could cling to any surface, and with the Blacklight virus greatly aiding in enhancing his balance and sense of direction. The second was Combat Focus, which focus on mind concentration. It greatly enhances dynamic vision and reflexes, doubling the ability to control all muscles in the body. He then moves towards a nearby wall, and as he stretched his fisted hand, Bai slowly aim at hitting it. However, the wall shuddered upon impact. This scene shocked Mia greatly. She wondered how it was possible for Bai to shudder an entire wall with just a touch of a fist. Luckily, he didn't use it on me, otherwise I'll be dead by now, she thought. On the other hand, Bai was delighted in his new strength. He thought that if he could control all his muscles, not to mention exerting force between their sizes, then, even within a hair's breadth, he could throw a full force punch. As he turned around, Bai noticed that Mia was blushing profusely. But when he asked, Mia replied that it was nothing. Hearing this, Bai told Mia to lead the way to the anatomy teacher's place because he was done with the research laboratory. Soon, they were in the corridor of the Virus Research Institute basement, and up ahead of them was the entrance to the incineration room. However, due to the lack of electricity in the basement, the corridor was dark. This scared Mia greatly, so as she complained about it to Bai, Bai simply told her to stop walking. They've reached their destination. He could feel it, but at the same time as Mia heard this, she crashed headfirst into Bai. Opening the door, Bai warned Mia for the second time to wait in the corridor and under no circumstance should she enter. And although she was scared, she reluctantly agreed. As Bai entered the room, the system immediately notified him. The system asked Bai to confirm his entry into the Dungeon of Instance, the cooling incinerator. There was also a recommended level ranging from 5 to 10. So with a confident smile, Bai's response was a yes. Upon confirmation, the system then notified Bai that a successful clearance of the instance dungeon will make the dungeon exist permanently, but if it isn't cleared within 2 days, it will permanently disappear. Seeing this, Bai realized that this was the reason why he'd never heard of this dungeon before in his previous life. Suddenly, the corpses there began to move. Seeing this, Bai readied himself, activating his Bone Claw skill. Immediately after, the dead bodies suddenly woke up, with one even crawling on the ceiling. It seems that the corpses had mutated, making them stronger and more agile. Bai took on a defensive stance, his gaze moving back and forth between the two mutated corpses. Surprising enough, the two didn't attack simultaneously. The one on the ground was the first to launch towards Bai, but as soon as it got within an attacking distance, Bai, without hesitation, slashed its chest with his bone claws. The attack was so fast and fierce that the mutated corpse died instantly. The system notified him that he'd gained 400 experience points for killing a level 5 resurrected body. Seeing this, the other on the ceiling opened its mouth and sucked in a considerable amount of air, then released it in a thunderstorm-like attack on Bai. But due to Bai's fast movements, he effortlessly moved to the side, dodging the assault with ease. He now understands why they didn't attack together earlier. It seems the attack just now requires some time to be activated. And although the attack might be too slow, Bai had no intention of playing around first. So with a giant leap, He made his way towards the mutated corpse on the ceiling, and as a smile crept on his lips, he told it to go back to hell. So with his heavy hammer, he delivered a massive gut-wrenching punch, killing it instantly. Again, the system notified him. This time around, he gained 1,000 experience points for killing a level 7 splicer infant spider. Seeing the system prompt, Bai was delighted as he made a sturdy landing. He thought this instant dungeon was really special indeed. It had a lot of experience points just begging to be harvested. At that very moment, the rest of the corpses mutated as they woke up, their gaze locked on Bai with an intense killing intent. Also, the door of the machine's incinerating chamber was repeatedly being hit from the inside. On the other hand, Bai was excited seeing this new development. He urged them to hurry and attack him already. The more the merrier. However, their slow movement made Bai decide to attack first. With his fast movements, Bai easily dealt with them, gaining 7,400 experience points in the process. The system prompted Bai that he had leveled up to 4 and gained 2 free attribute points. Bai approached the incinerating chamber and called out the boss. "Your minions are all dead, why don't you come out? Or would you like me to help you out?" Suddenly, a loud bang rang out, and with it, the door of the machine's incinerating chamber was blown open. Bai was immediately alert, his gaze fixated on what was in front of him. In the incinerating chamber was a massive meat-like monster. The sudden appearance made Bai feel uneasy. He wondered how it was possible for the meat-like monster to evoke such a strong sense of danger in him. This prompted him to quickly take action to eliminate the monster before it could evolve any further. So without hesitation, Bai launched an attack. However, the monster swiftly blocked it with a hand. Bai was undeterred and followed up with an attempt to infect the monster with his evolved flu virus. But the system notified him that the skill had no effect on the target. So as the meat-like monster fully emerged from the machine, it transformed and retaliated with a powerful punch which sent Bai flying and crashing into a wall, denting it greatly. As the dust cleared, Bai, staring at the monster, was impressed with its strength. In front of him was now a completed transformation of the meat-like monster Biomaniac, a giant monster over 5 meters tall. Biomaniac immediately dashed towards Bai at full might. Seeing this, Bai countered with a powerful punch in the stomach, then immediately did a backflip, evading Biomaniac's attack. However, Biomaniac had a high-speed regeneration ability, and with this, it swiftly recovered from the heavy punch with ease. Seeing this new development, Bai was oddly thrilled. He hasn't been able to fight going all out since his reborn. But now, the prospect of being able to do that against Biomaniac would be able to sharpen his hands and feet that had been rusty for the past few days. He also made mention of using Biomaniac to restore a little bit of his strength. An hour quickly passed by, and the fight was still ongoing as Bai continued his relentless onslaught. Biomaniac, on the other hand, kept up the pace, healing himself over and over again. Bai found the whole situation interesting as he began to ponder if Biomaniac's regeneration was infinite. So with curiosity, Bai activated a status read of his hourglass, which allowed him to recover instantly by enabling him to access an earlier copied state of himself. And just like that, the fight resumed again for another hour. At this point, Biomaniac was taking a longer time to heal. And Bai noticed this, so he questioned if Biomaniac's healing ability was going to eventually stop at some point, right? Again, an hour passed, and it seems that Biomaniac was nearing its limit. It laid on the ground, trembling and exhausted. Seeing this, Bai urged it to get up and continue with their fight. He hadn't had enough. Soon, an hour passed again, and at this point, Bai was basically being a bully. So as he stared at a defeated and trembling Biomaniac, who had reverted back to its little meat-like form, he questioned if he could not regenerate anymore. How disappointing. Anyway, it was fun while it lasted. But it's almost time to end this. Don't you think so? Bai asked this and immediately stomped on Biomaniac, crushing it into pieces and killing it. The system revealed that Biomaniac was a level 8 boss and killing it merit a whopping 10,000 experience points. Furthermore, Bai leveled up to 5 and gained 2 free attribute points. Bai received another notification that the dungeon had been successfully cleared, and he now had the option to exit anytime. Also, the instant dungeon cooled incinerator had been made permanent with a cooldown of 3 days. The system then presented Bai with an option to upload the clearance video as a paid video guide. All the payment would belong to the uploader. There was also an option to hide his face, ID and name. The price of viewing the video can also be set by the uploader. Seeing this, Bai agreed to the terms and requested to hide his appearance. The scene then shifted to Dongshan Villa area, specifically, Song Ziqiong's villa. Inside her room, she was being treated by Su Zin. Suddenly, Song Ziqiong immediately sat up straight, shocked at the announcement in the chat group. An evolver named White had uploaded the clearance video of a nightmare-level mystery dungeon, Cooled Incinerator, with a recommended level of 5 to 10. The viewing price was set at 1 copper coin. Seeing this, Song Ziqiong and Su Zin, with a nervous anticipation, decided to watch the video together. At the same time, other pioneers were way ahead of them. They had already tuned in from wherever they were. A girl was stunned by the speed at which Bai fought the monster, so she had to slow down the video to observe it carefully. Another was delighted that Bai was fully recovered. A guy with a headband was excited upon witnessing the fierce fight, and another, after observing, realized that the monster's regeneration was on a whole different level than Bai's. Although not infinite, was better than anything he'd ever seen. The chat group immediately exploded with comments after comments. Some were of Bai's insane power and also biomaniacs. Others were about their admiration towards him. Overall, the fight was intense and impressive. Back at the Cooled Incinerator dungeon, Bai had successfully absorbed all traces of Biomaniac and his minions. The system notified him that he'd gained 300 Black Light virus evolution points after the absorption of the special complex mutant. It seems that the Black Light virus had its own evolution points which were different from the virus points of talent. With his current resources, it meant Bai can only evolve the abilities and skills of the Black Light virus. Upon realizing this, Bai was actually delighted with the information. The system showed that with his evolution of his Black Light virus, his recovery speed had increased by 300%. He also acquired Biomaniac's Grade A passive ability skill, Cell Regeneration, and this was triggered by his Black Light virus. This skill allowed him to use a certain amount of his stamina or other energy to regenerate as quickly as possible, including a severed limb. The skill can also be turned on or off. Knowing there was a low probability of getting a passive skill, let alone an A-level skill at that, Bai was delighted with himself. Then, finally, it was time for him to check what the nightmare-level boss dropped. In front of Bai were 3 golden rewards that dropped. The first reward Bai picked up was a scroll, a unique A-level Biodemon professional scroll. It was an evil profession that absorbs other living beings to improve itself, and has the ability to stimulate its own cells to greatly enhance its strength and recovery capabilities. There was also a caution that excessive absorption may cause gene disintegration or mutation, and the consequences were unknown. The evolver had to be of level 10 with a physique greater than 15 to be able to use the item. A unique A-level profession with both risk and benefits. But I already have the Black Light virus, so this won't do, Bai commented after a considerable thought. He then moved on to the second reward, which was a potion. A Grade C genetic essence which had a perfect genetic essence that can be used to greatly improve one's physical condition. However, each evolver can only take it once. Seeing this, Bai immediately uncorked it, then drank the content without a second thought. His strength, physique and agility permanently increased by 2, 6 and 3 respectively. Then, the last of the 3 was a cloth named the Faceless Skin. Curious, Bai picked it up, and upon doing so, he realized that it was a D-grade special defense item. A special skin product with an excellent defense, multiple genes, and can alleviate the problem of a sagging skin. It adds a plus 10 each to an evolver's agility, physique and defense. Also, it had 2 effects on the body. The first was called body shaping, which could improve body shape when worn for a long term. However, this was recommended for women because it had a better effect on them. The second was called dynamic skin. After wearing it, an evolver can change the color and shape of any part of their body according to their own ideas. Seeing this, Bai was a little taken aback. The description of the dynamic skin was a little ambiguous. Is it a body change or is it an equipment item? Alright. I also managed to pick up some of the monsters dropped. Bai said this as he opened his system's inventory. And upon doing so, he realized that the other dropped items were all ordinary equipment that could be worn as inner armor. Although it wasn't the best quality, Bai was fine with it. But at that moment, a D-rank active skill book, the Active Cells, caught his eye. It increases cell activity for a short period of time. Thus, an evolver's recovery ability rises dramatically as a result. Its cooldown time is 10 hours. However, there was a note that states if an evolver already had the advanced version of this skill, which was the cell regeneration, then this skill book would be invalid. Seeing this, Bai commented that it didn't matter. After all, these life-saving skill books can be traded for other things in the system's chat room. Also, it was almost time for Bai to leave, and as long as he hands over the part of Biomaniac's body to Lord Leto, then the mission will be completed. Bai wondered if Lord Leto would even imagined that he'd be able to complete the task this quickly. And as he thought about Lord Leto's actions some more, Bai hesitated on leaving the dungeon. Then, he suddenly chose not to exit the dungeon. According to Bai, something wasn't adding up. Lord Leto wasn't a wandering trader in the game who moved aimlessly. He must have come to Blue Star for a reason. And as Bai remembers Lord Leto's departing words about his day being an unexpected harvest because Bai was an unexpected bonus, then Lord Leto's original purpose was most likely this special dungeon. Bai became resolve in his decision after this thought. However, the amount of rewards that he was getting in the dungeon wasn't adding up. There was no need for a divine avatar to come to Blue Star for these rewards. Could it be that his purpose had nothing to do with this dungeon? Or am I missing something? His attention immediately shifted to the dungeon's incineration chamber. Upon close inspection, Bai realized that if there was anything he hadn't seen in the dungeon, then it must be inside the incineration chamber. As he entered the incineration chamber, he noticed that the walls of the iron sheets, which was the fire outlets for the incineration bodies, was covered with oil and grease. And that was it. There was nothing special about it either. Looking at the pipe system, he wondered, could it be inside the pipe? Bai decided to go inside the pipe above to have a look. If he didn't investigate thoroughly, he might miss something. So with a light leap, Bai moved above the incineration chamber into the pipe system at a considerable pace. After a brief moment inside the pipe, he noticed that it was quite long and had far exceeded the height of the room. Then, looking ahead of him, his eyes widened in surprise. To his shock, it was a dead end. It can't be, can it? Is there really nothing? Bai questioned himself as his elbow involuntarily hit the iron sheet. Immediately after, a golden mask emerged from the iron sheet with a burst of golden light. Bai's reflexes kicked in as he punched the mask without any consideration. However, the system's notification alerted him soon after. What he'd found was a mask with an unknown name and grade. But the main cause of the incinerator's phenomenon was this unknown thing, and the appearance of the mask, which seems to have miraculous functions and effects. Amazed that his hunch was right, and there was actually an item, Bai, with curiosity and caution, picked up the mask. Although the mask had an unspecified name with some question marks, Bai had a gut feeling that it was most likely a fragment of an SSS-class item or an item related to a god. This was amazing, he said. This was definitely what Lord Leto was aiming for, but fortunately, it's in my hands now, and I've got to find a way to keep it. Outside the building of the university's underground incinerator, nightfall descends. Inside, Bai came out of the incineration chamber, then the dungeon soon after, and upon seeing Bai, Mia, with enthusiasm, shouted excitedly that she'd watched Bai's video. He was way too strong than what she initially thought, and that she was in love with him now. Hearing this, Bai just asked her if she had copper coins. Oh, I do. When the others were fighting zombies, I contributed with a last-ditch attack. Checking his own, Bai wondered how many gold coins he had. The price to watch the video was a copper coin, so there should be a lot of people watching. He found out that he had a total of 912 gold coins, 75 silver coins, and 32 copper coins, which was not enough. He needed 1,000 gold coins to unlock a spatial storage feature. The spatial storage was protected by the universal will from all intruders in every dimension or place, so it was the safest way to leave the item undetected. Due to this, he decided to wait before he turned in his mission. Soon, Bai and Mia exit the university's medical faculty, specifically, its main building. Mia asked Bai if he was heading back to Dongshin Villa mentioned earlier. No, not at this moment. There are many unknown dangers at night, so we should find a place to spend the night first. Hearing this, Mia was delighted. She made mention that there were a few high-class hotels not far from the university, and it was not a holiday either, so there won't be many people. Also, they were extremely tall, so it should be safer, right? Bai had no objections hearing this, so she told Mia to lead the way. They made their way to the Love Couple Hotel. Inside a room named Hundreds of Temptations, Mia, dressed in a nurse uniform, asked Bai if the uniform was to his liking. No, I don't like this one. Hearing this, Mia apologized. She thought Bai picked this hotel specifically for this purpose. Indeed, I did pick this hotel for this purpose, but I simply don't like what you're wearing right now. Mia suggested she'll go find another uniform then. Soon, she came out from the changing room, dressed in a too revealing cop uniform. Again, Bai told her to change into something else. She did just that immediately. Her next uniform was that of a teacher. But same as previously, she was told that a change of uniform was needed because she wasn't well behaved enough. Next was a student, but she was boring, so another change was needed, preferably a more interesting costume. Mia's next uniform was that of a pet, with a tail and all. Seeing this, Bai, intrigued with the idea of Mia being his little pet, told her to come over. What she had on was a perfect costume that fit her for the night. His little pet. Immediately after, the hotel lived up to its purpose with flying colors. Deep within the night, Bai woke up after their long session. Checking his coins, he finally had enough gold coins to enable his spatial storage function. The storage space could not be detected by any ability or skill, and it's absolutely private and secret, protected by the universal will. Bai was then given an option to choose a successor, and asked to use the spatial storage carefully. His first action was the golden mask. Bai successfully stored it in the storage space. The next step was to proceed to summon Lord Leto. Bai, with a smile, took out the coin and tossed it, summoning the god of goblin and trade. At an undisclosed location near Love Hotel, Bai waited patiently for Lord Leto's arrival. And as he was waiting, he remembered a saying in his previous life that was widely circulated. It was that when trading with Lord Leto, emotions were part of the bargaining chip. This meant that Lord Leto would adjust the rewards in order to take care of the emotions of the transaction or task object. However, the premise was that the evolver had to have enough value in Lord Leto's eyes. Soon, Bai took out the piece of Biomaniac's body from his pocket when Lord Leto arrived. Lord Leto, who was in his usual mood, greeted Bai. He admitted that he didn't expect Bai to summon him so soon. "Have you completed the task to proof yourself?" he asked. "Yes. And here's the proof. A part of the creature's body from the dungeon required for the task." Bai replied and tossed a part of Biomaniac's body over. The piece fell near Lord Leto's feet. Looking at the wizened flesh, it was obviously not fresh. And Lord Leto noticed this immediately with a hint of surprise. He deduced that Bai must have completed the task last night, right? "Why didn't you call me right away? Or is it that you suddenly didn't want the scroll anymore?" Lord Leto summoned his walking stick as he questioned Bai. Hearing this, Bai replied in a cold tone that he couldn't figure it out earlier. The person whom he respects and admires so much actually hid a crucial information from him. "Why did you hide the difficulty of the dungeon from me? It wasn't until I entered the dungeon that I realized that it was a nightmare level. And if I hadn't had some tricks up on me, I would have died in there." Considering Bai's accusations, Lord Leto replied after a brief moment that he understands Bai's frustration, but he can explain. In fact, it was part of the test if he's being honest. There was no way he would hand over such a treasure to someone who couldn't handle the unexpected. So with this realization, Lord Leto hopes Bai understands. Bai, still maintaining his cold demeanor, replied that he got it. Anyway, what's the reward and the next task? First, Lord Leto admitted that it was wrong of him to hide the information from Bai in the first place. Second, since Bai had proven himself, he had to reward him. However, this time around, the reward was of Bai's choosing. Also, the next task will be the final round. How's that? Hearing this, Bai smiled for the first time upon summoning Lord Leto. Bai then paid his respects to Lord Leto for his understanding and generosity. Acknowledging Bai's appreciation, Lord Leto told him to take his pick with the highest quality B rank items. Immediately after, numerous items suddenly appeared around Bai, shocking him. Seeing the items on display, Bai was impressed. He chose a B rank recovery scroll. Bai's choice also impressed Lord Leto a little. He commented that Bai was indeed knowledgeable and had a clear goal in mind. So with the reward session over, the next thing was the final task. Upon hearing this, Bai's entire demeanor stiffens as his eyes widen in complete shock. In front of him was an SSS-level task, named the Ultimate Investment, issued by Lord Leto. This final round was to get 2 SSS-level profession scrolls. 2 SSS-level profession scrolls? Bai shouted in disbelief. So with a nervous look, Bai questioned Lord Leto if he knows the level of difficulty the task was. "Even gods are not born with SSS-level professions." "Of course I know. I know all too well. After all, my first profession was an A level. However, it's my best treasure, so it must go to the best place. Otherwise, I would have a hard time parting with it." Left with no choice, Bai agreed, accepting the task with full confidence. Meanwhile, at the same time at Dongshan Villa area, Song Ziqiong and her men were in a dire situation. Their territory was invaded by a level 5 mutant giant rat. With a strength of 18, agility of 20, physique of 19, and energy of 3. This was the only information they could get their hands on since their difference in levels were too great to see the rest of the giant rat's abilities. As Dongshan Villa area faced several casualties, Song Ziqiong, Chinger, and a couple of guards hid behind huge rocks amidst the chaos, observing the movements of the giant rat. Chinger briefed Song Ziqiong that the rat they're currently facing was much bigger than the previous ones. Also, the 2 teams which had encountered the rat had been completely wiped out. Hearing this, Song Ziqiong replied, knowing all too well that the mutated rat had its attributes higher than theirs about 3 or 4 times. Hearing this made Chinger ask what they should do then, since they were unable to deal with it. Looking at her injured men, Song Ziqiong ordered them to stay away from the giant rat for now, but should continue to observe its movements. However, Unbeknownst to everyone, the giant rat had a high sense of smell and had caught on to their scent at that precise moment. Seeing this, Chinger's eyes widened upon realization, but it was too late. The giant mutated rat, with its fierce movements, was upon them in an instant. Song Ziqiang shouted for everyone to run away as Chinger helps her evade the rat's assault. The mutated rat began to wreak havoc over and over without any signs of slowing down. Amidst the deafening chaos, Chinger tried to help Song Ziqiang to her feet, urging her about the need to escape their immediate vicinity as soon as possible. But witnessing the rat's agility, Song Ziqiang replied that it was too late, and indeed it was, because at that moment, the giant rat launched at them high in the air with an intense killing intent. Fortunately, above them, including the rat, was a purple ball of lightning, shot from the sky, aiming directly at their location. This mysterious light was Bai, who landed directly on top of the mutated rat with a massive kick, killing it instantly. Seeing Bai's sudden appearance, Song Ziqiang's face lights up like a Christmas tree. It was obvious that she was way too delighted with Bai's arrival. Standing on top of the dead rat, Bai noticed that he arrived in the nick of time. Any moment later would have been too damaging to mend. He ordered Chinger to call the men to clean up the villa's compound and make sure to compensate and reward those who died. And as for Song Ziqiang, she should brief him on the situation so far. A while later, inside Song Ziqiang's villa, Luli briefs Bai on what happened since he left. They had been able to clear out the zombies. But soon after, the mutated rats, which were originally located at the east side from the villa's location, swamped in their territory like ants. Also, they lost 6 warehouses and the number of casualties exceeded 100. Luli hands the documents over to Bai, who praised everyone for their efforts. Based on the information he'd received, it looks like they've all worked hard. Bai assures everyone that he will clean up the mutated rats in the area the following day, and also find out the source. Hearing this, Song Ziqiang, still with her warm smile, thanked Bai for his concern. But they will feel uneasy if they all rest now, and had no one to take care of him. So she would like to recommend someone for him this very evening. Hearing this, Bai had no objections. At the door, Song Ziqiang told the person in question to come in. Immediately after, the door opened, and at the door was a young blonde lady with a well-defined good body. A pretty face with a salacious curves that was too enticing to ignore. Song Ziqiang introduced her as a lawyer. According to her, the lovely lady could help Bai with any rules he's currently facing, and she was willing to be Bai's people. The underlying meaning of her words was pretty obvious. Hearing this, Bai replied that the young lady, Qin Lingyu, could stay and the rest should leave and rest. Everyone left the two in the room immediately after those words. Meanwhile, Qin Lingyu, with a seductive demeanor, told Bai that if he needed her to do anything, then all he needs to do is say it. Hearing this, Bai placed a finger delicately underneath her chin and told her that he'd heard that her profession was quite sharp-tongued, so the man downstairs would like to experience it firsthand. Upon hearing this, Qin Lingyu gave a radiant smile, understanding her task with joy. She replied that she understands, and assures Bai that she won't disappoint him. So, after an intense session a while later, Qin Lingyu wipes her mouth clean, thanking Bai for this opportunity. Bai replied, saying he was very satisfied, because Qin Lingyu's technique was really good. He then got up from the sofa and head towards the window. Looking at the view below, he told her to come over. "Let me say a few words about our rulemaking requirements here," he said. But as Bai was about to continue, Qin Lingyu suddenly bends in front of him by the window, puzzling him. Bai asked what the reason for her sudden posture. Did she not hear a word he just said? Qin Lingyu apologized that she wasn't paying attention due to her B-level skill. Focus. It allows her to increase the speed of her thinking and the sensitivity of her senses when she is concentrating on anything, and blocks out all other information from the outside world. Listening to her explanation, Bai continued with what he was saying earlier. "Anyway, I asked you to come over so you can see all the 3 areas of Dongshan. From this point of view at the villa, you can see high-end residential on the hillside and lower mountain neighborhoods. I need you to make rules according to these different areas." Qin Lingyu replied that she understood, and continued by asking if Bai had any other requests. Hearing this gave Bai an idea, so with a sly grin, he replied that he indeed did have a simple request, and it was about her abilities. "I'm curious to see how far your senses can be stimulated when you're concentrating on your feelings." Qin Lingyu began to blush profusely when she understood what Bai was implying. She then turns to face the window, activating her focus skill. And what followed after was another intense session throughout the night. The next morning, Bai led a team to the sewerage outlet within the area. He explained to everyone present that he found this place through the architectural drawing and traces of mutated rats. And after a brief exploration, he noticed that it was the lair of those mutated rats. Bai also decided against cleaning the place up by himself. And this was the reason why he brought everyone here. He wants to quickly train strong individuals who were reliable and could be trusted to protect everyone within their community when he's not around. Everyone present was picked and brought here by him to level up. When they become strong and capable, they would be the backbone of the community. Bai turned to face them and ask if they were ready for such a task. In unison, everyone half knelt and replied that they were ready, calling him Master. Being called Master sounded cringed and awkward, so Bai addressed it, telling them to simply call him Brother Bai instead of Master. It was weird for a bunch of grown men to be calling him Master. This pleased everyone and also squashed the awkwardness from earlier. Bai approached the entrance of the sewerage outlet, and with just a casual movements of his hand, he destroyed the iron bars blocking the tunnel. Immediately upon doing this, the system issued a notification that a special mission, Sewer Hosts, has been triggered. Seeing this, Bai asked the rest if they also received the same notification. After receiving an affirmative reply, Chinger reads aloud that the mission requires them to kill all the mutated rats, the Rat King, and investigate the source of the mutation of the rats. The reward depended entirely on the rate of completion. They all head inside with Bai leading the charge. Due to the tunnel being so dark, Bai was pleased that he took the initiative to ask everyone to bring torches along. However, what surprised him was how clean the sewerage tunnel was. At that very second, a loud rustling sound could be heard approaching. Bai immediately warned everyone to be on alert. The rats were coming. And just like that, within a few distance, a mischief of mutated rats swarmed the entire tunnel. Seeing this, Bai activated his bone claw skill with one hand and the heavy hammer skill with the other. There were a lot of them, so he told everyone to be careful. They soon engage in a one-sided battle as the rats were being eliminated without difficulty. Bai instructed them to be mindful of the injured but not dead rats, since they could pose a threat if they become complacent. A while later, the group successfully managed to kill all the mutated rats, with some of them gaining some equipment. Song Ziqiong gave Bai a brief assessment of their progress so far. They had almost cleared the section of this pipe, and 16 long and short sections of the pipeline as well. But at that moment, another rat approached them, causing one of the men to loudly notify everyone. Seeing this, Song Ziqiong just smiled and said she will personally take care of it since it was only one mutated rat. So as the rat approached them from the shadows, Bai instructed her to use her scouting skill first. When she did, she immediately froze on the spot when she realized that it was the boss. A level 7 boss, the Rat King. She couldn't see his specific attributes, but the strength and agility were 30 and 40 respectively. The Rat King launched at Song Ziqiong with evident killing intent, but before it could get any closer to her, Bai leaped forward, deciding to face it head-on. Worried, she told Bai to be careful, but what she saw right after left her speechless. In one clean strike, Bai had swiftly killed the Rat King. He received a Grade E set of Defense Plague Boots. It gives an additional 5 agility points to the user. It also had a poison protection function which reduces the effects of poisonous debuffs. The boots worn by the Plague Bearer will spread fear and death wherever he steps. The disease spreads also. Bai was surprised upon receiving a piece of a full set equipment for killing the Rat King. He immediately puts it on, and although it was a lower grade item, if he were to collect all of them, 5 in total, then they would be several times stronger than that of normal equipment of the same grade. With the Rat King killed, the remaining task was to investigate the cause of the mutation. A while later, after exploring all the remaining 5 pipelines, everyone was puzzled that there weren't that many rats to deal with. When they try approaching Bai, he told them, including Song Ziqiong, to stop. They shouldn't approach any further. Bai took a couple steps forward, and as he did, the system notified him that he had absorbed a spore plague for the first time and gained 10 plus virus points. Then, a bone spur plague also for the first time and gained 23 plus virus points. A rotting plague, a mutant dark green spore plague, and a black death plague for 15, 14 and 20 plus virus points respectively. Bai was surprised with this new development. It was normal to absorb viruses and some germs in the sewers, but the viruses he just absorbed were something that didn't exist on Earth before the trials. Moreover, the type, quality, and quantity could even harm evolvers. It seems the source of the mutation was not far ahead either. So Bai told Song Ziqiong and the others that they couldn't go any further. They should return immediately. Song Ziqiong agreed without hesitation. And as Bai continued further, he noticed that with each step he took, the virus points grew faster, which he found interesting. He wondered what the growth rate will be when he finds the source. As Bai approached the source, he felt the virus points growing more and more intense. And as for a virus monarch such as himself, This place was heaven for him. Bai found the source, and it turns out to be a corpse with several web-like structure attached to its back. It was emitting a green glow and suspending the corpse in the air. A corpse? So this is the source of the mutation and plague virus, he said. According to the concentration of the plague virus, the source should be this scroll. Bai walked up to the corpse and took out the scroll. Upon opening the content without any preparations and instructions, he found out that it was just some sort of letter, addressed by Lilian Zhao, the plague cult. A name and a cult he never heard of even in his previous life. But that was of no importance to him because after absorbing all the viruses there, he would be able to make a breakthrough in strength. He then used his virus absorption on the scroll. But what happened immediately after almost tore his arm off? An unknown power entered through his arm, nearly tearing it apart. And seconds after, he received a notification that the special mission, Sewer Host, was completed. 2,000 experience points were gained with a random reward being drawn also. Then the system congratulates him on obtaining the item Wall of Flesh. The corpse immediately fell over as Bai received another notification. He had received the Seal of Plague, and this was proof that he had become a core member of the plague cult. The seal, which was condensed from countless number of horrific plagues, will change if another plague seal is within a certain radius. What? Seal of Plague? Bai murmured to himself, a little taken aback. Also, by obtaining the Seal of Plague without being corrupted by it, the requirement was achieved to trigger subsequent missions. The system issued another mission, Plague Cult, with difficulty level of SSS. And this shocked Bai greatly. The description of the SSS mission states that the Plague Cult has sacrificed the old gods and brought countless treasures to this world in order to welcome the true god of their prophecy. If you have the Seal of Plague, you are qualified to become the true god of prophecy. You need to find the members of the Plague sect and take their test. So the objective of the mission is to find a Plague bringer, and the mission rewards are unknown. When he finished reading, he knew the mission was related to acquiring a god's authority, and if he acquires that and becomes the god of Plague, he will be qualified to fight Heloise head-on. This made him excited on finding this Plague bringer. At that moment, a dungeon started generating in front of him, and as he got closer, a notification popped up. A Hell difficulty dungeon Plague Sewer was being generated, and the remaining time until it's completely generated was 29 days, 23 hours, 58 minutes, and 59 seconds. This level was harder than the Cold Incinerator's Nightmare level. Knowing it will take a month to generate, Bai cautioned himself to not take the Hell difficulty of this dungeon lightly when he comes back in a month's time. He will be well prepared. Meanwhile, Song Ziqiang and the rest had found another dungeon in the sewer area, and this one had been generated completely. Moreover, it was of normal difficulty with recommended levels ranging from 1 to 10. The limit was 3 entries per day, so it was pretty convenient for everyone. Bai happens to arrive at that moment, commenting that level 1 to level 10 was just about right for everyone, especially Song Ziqiang, to level up. Song Ziqiang smiled when Bai returned. She told him that she'd sent someone to notify every evolver. They had to come in groups to level up in this new dungeon. And with 3 entries a day, it was pretty convenient and the opportunity shouldn't be wasted. Bai agreed, telling her that she'd done well. 20 minutes later, everyone gathered at the entrance of the dungeon area as Bai explained the situation. The sewer dungeon didn't have a large space, so it's best to enter in groups of 4 to 8. But keep in mind that your life are more important. Life first, profit second, in that order. Hearing this, everyone replied in unison that they understood. Bai turned to Song Ziqiang, Luli, and Chinger. You 3 will enter the dungeon with me, but you're on your own once we're inside. I will only interfere when it's necessary, he said. Bai told them to team up and join a chat group he sent them. An invitation immediately popped up, displaying that the evolver number 001 has invited them to join his White Emperor Palace chat group. Song Ziqiang was shocked greatly when she saw Bai's number. The numbering was just the order in which everyone became an evolver, so there's no need to be so surprised. Bai said this with a smug. But Song Gu, at this moment, was confused as to why she didn't receive any invitation. Bai replied that she didn't receive any invitation because he never sent her one. His harem were for only loyal and capable people, not for a little girl who apparently was scared shitless of a zombie that she wet herself. Song Gu shouted, saying that Bai shouldn't underestimate her too much. She had grown a lot since then. Really? Are you sure? Then pick up an equipment and get in the dungeon. Show me how much you have grown then. Immediately after, Bai displayed an array of weapons in front of her to choose from. Then they entered the dungeon seconds after. Inside the sewer dungeon infested with several mutated rats, the group was not far from the entrance when they encountered some of them. Song Gu, with a dagger in hand, took on a stance and readied herself. I will handle these giant rats ahead by myself, she said. At this moment, Bai remembered that he still had no idea what Luli and Songgu talents were. Luli explained that hers was a B-level talent, illusion, which allows her to create disembodied phantoms based on her imagination. This obviously plays a minor role in combat. And as for Songgu, her talent was a C-ranked natural aptitude, which accelerates the growth of experience and proficiency by 50%. A growth accelerator, It seems that it's not as helpful in combat as your phantom skill. Bai commented on this, to which Luli agreed. Feeling proud of herself, Songgu was able to successfully deal with 3 mutated rats without any assistance. Also, since the giant rats were obviously more powerful than a zombie, she deemed it a better way to redeem herself. Bai took a couple steps forward, commenting that her results wasn't bad. And since she was trying too hard to join his harem, he will make an exception. Songgu was a little flustered when she heard this. She feigned being bored, and replied that she just wanted to prove herself. She wasn't trying to join any harem. Okay then, I will respect your choice and won't send you any invitation. This freaked Songgu out because she expected Bai to try to persuade her in order to win her over. So with an embarrassed demeanor, she pleaded for Bai to let her join. Bai wasn't going to make it easy, so in a teasing manner, he made mention that since Songgu was still being a little reluctant, he would also try to think about sending it, if he has time. This shocked the already flustered Songgu, making her blush profusely in embarrassment. Her mother cut in at this moment, telling Bai to stop teasing her daughter. After all, she was still young, and she was apparently angry at her for introducing Qin Lingyu to him instead of her. Hearing this from her mother, Songgu was even more embarrassed. She wanted the ground to swallow her whole. Bai leaned close to her, and with a teasing smile, told her that, for her mother's sake, he would send her the invitation. Upon accepting the invitation to join the White Emperor Palace, we see that Songgu is evolver number 10261521. Songgu got excited with this, and immediately run off to kill some mutated rats. Seeing this made Bai comment on how she was behaving like a tsundere little princess. Song Ziqiong added that her daughter was just a tough talker, but Bai need not to worry. If they finished raiding the dungeon and go back to the villa, she promised to make sure her daughter calls him daddy. Taken aback by Song Ziqiong's bold declaration, Bai asked with a smile, "You are very decisive, aren't you?" "Of course I am. You have to be decisive," she replied in a seductive demeanor. "The world has completely changed, and a young lady like my daughter, who had never suffered before, should have a daddy." Having a daddy like Bai would mean a lot to Songgu. Meanwhile, in a bathroom of a luxury suite in a hotel somewhere, a young blue-haired lady was enjoying her comfortable life she'd had during the end of the world. And it was all thanks to the advice she'd had from Bai in the group chat. So as she was leisurely relaxing in a jacuzzi, a notification popped up. It stated that the Evolver Bai's team made the first clearance of a normal level dungeon, a sewer dungeon in Dongshan. The level was 1 to level 10, and the price to watch the clearance video was 10 copper coins. Seeing this, her eyes suddenly widened in surprise. What? The group leader had cleared a dungeon again? She immediately clicked on the video, commenting that she had never seen a normal dungeon before, so she was curious. But with 10 copper coins and the rate at which Bai was uploading his videos, she will soon go bankrupt if she continues to watch every time. As she began to watch, what she immediately noticed were the women. Why was there so many women? She questioned herself with an evident blush. At this time, many evolvers were also watching the video. One commented that although the women in the video were very talented overall, they weren't particularly good in combat. What he wanted was Bai to take action and fight, so he fast-forwarded to the desired time of the video. Another also commented that the monsters in the depths of the dungeon were of high level. And due to this, even with Bai's guidance, the women still couldn't defeat them. So Bai had to take matters into his own hands and take action. Facing the boss of the dungeon, which seems to be very strong, was defeated by Chun Bai with ease. Other evolvers were also curious about Bai's true power. And whatever it might be, one of them argued that it wouldn't be as powerful as their S-rank leader, Tom, so it was fine. They had just been unlucky, and hadn't encountered any dungeons so far. Their conversation was cut short by Tom, who corrected them that Bai killed the boss of the dungeon in one shot. And based on what he's seen, Bai was stronger than him. Meanwhile, back to the blue-haired lady, she was having an exotic fantasy about Bai. A level 10 boss. The group leader is really strong, and the fighting methods he taught those women were also very strong, she said. If only I was in the group leader's city too. I really envy those women, since they were being personally instructed by Bai and all. The scene then shifts to Song Ziqiong's villa. In her study room, Bai called for her, and as Song Ziqiong came over, Bai told her he had a task for her. After everyone had gone through the sewer dungeon, they would probably receive a lot of low-grade equipment. Song Ziqiang's task was to work with Qin Lingyu and Luli to create rules for the economy of the base and equipment trade as soon as possible. Song Ziqiang was on board when she heard this. Then Bai took out some items from his inventory. "Anyway, I have something for you," he said. Bai then proceeds to take out the wall of flesh, the faceless skin, and a scroll. When Song Ziqiang saw this, she was speechless. "You should be able to see the importance of these items, right?" Bai questioned with a smug look. First, Song Ziqiang picked up the wall of flesh, and upon checking its status, she found out that it was a wall material that could grow by devouring flesh and blood. It was also stronger than any wall they could ever build, and could also be a powerful barrier if utilized properly. The second item she picked up was the scroll, which contained some sort of instructions in creating something. And the effect of whatever it is depends on the material used to make it. And it was something that could save your life when needed. Song Ziqiang commented that with these items, they could definitely become the sole ruler of Jiangxing in a short time. The third, and what Song Ziqiang became most interested in, was the faceless skin, which improves the appearance of the body and can be transformed into any appearance. Seeing her excitement, Bai took a seat and asked if the other two was less important than what she was currently holding. "What? How can that be? When you're the real owner of all this," Song Ziqiang said with a seductive demeanor. "That's why the equipment that pleases you the most is the most important of the three." She then snuggled up to Bai as Bai commented, "I don't know much about women's clothes, so I'm wondering if you can surprise me." Song Ziqiang replied that she did had a surprise for Bai, and it wasn't just her. She promised to make Song Gu officially call Bai daddy. She was gonna dress up right now, so Bai should just wait patiently. A while later, in the middle of the night, inside the bedroom of the villa, Bai was carrying a woman dressed in a cat costume. She was fast asleep as Bai carried her, and gently placed her on a white cotton sheet where there were 4 other women, who were also fast asleep. What took place was obvious and didn't need any explanation. And as Bai was leaving the room, he took one last look behind him with an evident smug on his face. He dressed up, equipped himself with the plague robe, and as he did, the system notified him that all his attributes had increased by 5, and he was 2 out of 5 when it came to equipping himself with the plague set part. His day's dungeon raid in the sewer only dropped 1 plague set after 3 attempts. But if he were to get 1 plague set part after every 3 attempts, then he can collect the full set in 3 days. At that moment, Bai got a system alert in his chat group. A member by the name Dreamy had initiated a private chat with Bai. Dreamy? Upon checking the message, it reads that Dreamy had watched Bai's recent strategy video. He gave guidance based on each person's talents and abilities. Dreamy, on the other hand, was not good at combat, so contacting Bai at this moment was to get his guidance. "Is that okay?" Realizing it was just a person looking for guidance, Bai replied, "Guidance requires me to have a certain understanding of your talent. If you trust me, then send me your talent details and I can help you after taking a look. If you don't want to reveal your talent details, your attributes details are fine too. But with just that, I won't be able to help you much." Dreamy answered immediately after reading the reply. "No, if it depends on talent details, I will give it to you right now," she said. Bai was puzzled. He'd never heard of someone named Dreamy in his previous life. And the people in the group are all pioneers, so she's got to be good. But at that moment, Bai's eyes widened in shock when Dreamy sent her talent details over. Dream Butterfly with dream points of 31. An SSS level talent with infinite growth. Seeing this, he was certain that there was no way this power of Dreamy could be unknown in his previous life. So this meant that she died in his previous life. Bai replied, saying that SSS level talents were very complicated. "Can you tell me the effects of your talents and skills?" he asked. Dreamy agreed and replied that her dream butterfly was the ability to enter the dream world, which was the same as the real world. And it can also be used to enter other people's dream world. She continued that some things could be taken out of the dream world. And with that, she had been dream weaving. Dream weaving was about adjusting anything in the dream world, however, there was very little she could adjust at the moment. Also, to dream with her, she had to invite the person into her dream world by creating a dream totem. Bai read the message with a smile. He knew that the talent was practically invincible as long as no one finds her true body. Dreamy sent him another message, saying that she wanted to send Bai a dream totem in the form of a picture. Then Bai could enter the dream world and guide her. Bai wasn't on board with that idea because, if he were to enter in her dream world, he wouldn't have any protection. Dreamy pleaded for Bai to not refuse her. She could sign an Evolver's contract with him, promising not to do anything harmful to Bai. An Evolver's contract? Bai's eyes widened in surprise when he read this. A bit unsure, Bai asked Dreamy if she meant an Evolver's contract, recognized by the universal will, which also cost at least 10 gold coins. This made Bai question why she needed his combat advice anyway. She was willing to sacrifice 10 gold coins. Also, if she's that weak in combat, how come she has 10 gold coins to begin with? The monsters I kill in the dream world die in real life as well, she said. And I can adjust the explosion rate of the monsters in the dream world through dreamweaving, so I have just enough gold coins. Dreamy also made mention that she could give Bai other rewards which he would be interested in. They were 2 skill books. The first skill is Spiritual Perception D-level skill book. Bai knew it was a powerful ability, and it could be said that it was no worse than Bai's Virus King. The second skill is City Building Order, a grade F special item. At this moment, Dreamy pleaded again, telling Bai that although she might be strong in her dreams, she is the exact opposite in reality. And on top of this, she had a strong gut feeling that if she didn't improve her combat skills, she would die sooner or later. Upon reading this, Bai immediately thought that her instincts were accurate. After all, her abilities had no physical improvements whatsoever. It was an incredible weakness. Alright then, send me the Evolver's contract. Bai agreed to teach her. Since Dreamy was willing to sign the contract, he would help her. After all, such a powerful talent must be recruited for his use. Seconds later, the Evolver's contract was sent, which was valid for 24 hours. And Bai, without hesitation, agreed and signed the contract. It was nightfall, and in the second bedroom of the villa, Bai was leisurely resting on his bed. The dream totem needs Bai to relax and focus for 3 minutes to activate. But it takes significantly longer if a person has a guarded personality. And Bai happens to fall in this situation. He knew that if Dreamy's ability evolves to the point where it was possible to be awake and dream at the same time, then it would be terrifying. The contract was eventually activated as Bai fell under, and slowly woke up in Dreamy's apartment in the dream world. He got up, took a couple steps when he saw Dreamy for the first time. Dreamy turned out to be a little pink-haired girl. "Hello, group leader. Welcome to the dream world," she said nervously. "My given name is Meng, as in dream, and I've just signed a contract with you, brother Bai." Bai also introduced himself as Chin Bai. "So, this is the world of your dreams?" he asked. "It's not suitable for combat training." "Oh, not here. I cleaned up a gym not far from here." And as Meng said this, she opened a portal from her apartment to the outside world of the dream. Seeing this, Bai was surprised and impressed. The layout outside was identical to the city before the arrival of the Universal Will. "Is this the gym?" he asked. "It seems that your dream world is very big." Hearing this, Meng, with a bright smile, decided to clarify something. She explained that the dream world was independent and does not belong to her. However, she, as a dream traveler, could only enter and modify it. And based on her exploration ever since she dream traveled, it seems that the dream world was a reflection of the real world. Bai understood and told Meng that they should get started. They had no time to waste. "Let's go to the gym right now and start your training." Meng agreed and led Bai through the portal as they walked above the city. A while later, they arrived at a basketball court inside the dream world. Meng, who had a direct authority in the dream space, just simply snapped her fingers. "Let there be light," she said. Then, immediately upon saying this, the entire court was illuminated. Bai took a look around, then back at Meng, and commented that she looks like a middle school girl after all, so this place suits her. Meng retorted that she was a novelist before the apocalypse. Bai took a seat and said to Meng, "So, what you want is to strengthen your abilities in the real world. Then the best way to do that is by learning how to fight." He continued, telling her not to use her dream world abilities against him. She should just use her fighting strength at her current level. Meng explained that all her attributes are boosted to the level of her mental strength in the dream world. And her current mental strength is 48, so Bai should be careful. Bai got up and told her not to worry. She should just attack him with all she has. Hearing this, Meng took on a fighting posture, and with a loud shout, she launched at Bai with a close fist. Bai simply stepped aside with minimal effort as Meng took a swing and missed, knocking herself off balance in the process. Bai assessed the situation and commented that her weight is unbalanced. She can't hit the target and also can't retreat either. Again, upon hearing this, Meng tried again. Only this time, she was throwing punches everywhere with her eyes closed. The scene was so childish that Bai, with a teasing smile, asked, "Is this the turtle punch in a children's martial arts school or something?" "Well, first, you must control your balance. A punch that cannot be recovered is the weakest." The second was that Meng needed to determine her target, expose where she wants to hit instead of hitting randomly. The third was that she needed to watch her opponent and not be obsessed with her own attack. Now that Bai had an understanding of Meng's current level, He told her to remember these 3 points he just said, and she will be fine. Just now, as Bai tried to attack her, the speed of his punches was about 20, and she couldn't handle it. Meng apologized for her inadequacies. Hearing this, Bai told her that there was no need to apologize. She should just work hard in training. Being close to Bai made Meng a bit flustered. She promised to do as she has been told, and work hard. The scene shifts to the villa, and 7 days had passed. It was nightfall, and inside at the lounging hall, Song Ziqiong reported to Bai that all the laws had been established and had been posted in the community. There were also people in front of each billboard who were responsible for any explanation needed. Hearing that the state of Dongshan area was already on the right track, Bai informed Song Ziqiong that he would be leaving early the next day. He had been cleaning up Dongshan area in the past few days, but now that the area is stable, the management of the entire area would be left in her hands. Surprised, Song Ziqiong asked why Bai was leaving so soon. She initially thought Bai would stay for a while longer. After all, the plague group was missing one piece. Checking the status window of the plague group, which was now 4 out of 5, Bai replied that he didn't have the time to wait for an E-grade group anymore. There were numerous opportunities and precious treasures out there, and he needed to go out there and grab what he can, before it's too late to do so. Hearing Bai's reason, Song Ziqiong leaned in close and placed her arms around his shoulders, reminding him to also think about them too. He needed to return to them safely. Otherwise, if Emperor Bai's palace get flooded with more harem, no one will be able to control it. "Oh, is there a flood on my land?" he questioned in a flirtatious manner. "If there is, then go summon them all. We will have a good discussion today about how to close the water outlet to avoid the flood." Song Ziqiong was on board, agreeing to carry out the orders immediately. Late in the night, an intense discussion took place, and the entire villa were filled with echoing moans from Bai's harem. This lasted throughout the night to the next morning. So early the next morning, the entire harem had passed out from exhaustion. Bai got dressed and left the room, closing the door behind him. Chinger, who happens to be looking for someone, appeared right after. Upon seeing Chinger, Bai asked her if she is looking for someone inside his room because no one had woken up yet. She replied that she was actually looking for him. Hearing this, Bai asked what the matter was. Chinger reported that there is someone causing trouble in the settlement at the foot of the mountain. Bai was a bit puzzled as to why she was looking for him for this kind of matter. Haven't the community rules already been posted? He turned to face her and continued, wondering why she wasn't resolving whatever the issue was according to the rules. Chinger apologized for bothering Bai and said that they had already controlled the situation. But there's someone among them instigating a commotion, and also claims to be Bai's classmate. Hearing enough of this, Bai told Chinger to take him there. They soon arrived at the foot of the mountain in the villa area, where this classmate in question started shouting for everyone to take a look when he saw Bai. Chinger gave Bai an update on the situation down there. These were the people who are dissatisfied with our daily fee of 1 copper coin, and they want to get free security and stability without paying the price. As Bai descends the stairs, the guy loudly called out to him, stating that his name is Li Chun. "Li Chun, I know you," he said, "but our rules are not harsh because to get 1 copper coin you only need to kill 1 zombie. That's it. And even if you can't kill a zombie, there were jobs in the community where anyone can earn money. So why are you causing trouble?" Li Chun replied that it wasn't a matter of how much money was being collected. Bai was wrong because in the end times, everyone must be careful and help each other out. Now that Bai has resources, he should help everyone overcome their difficulties. Li Chun said this was his advice to Bai as the student council president. Cancellation of the rules would be in the best interest for everyone, and everyone would also appreciate his effort. Bai couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. He neither had the time nor did he want to waste it on someone as insignificant as him. He then told everyone to listen up. There are rules here, and anyone who disagrees or refuses to accept it can leave. Anyone who doesn't leave after 3 minutes will be shot without any mercy.